way, did you ever find your headphones?
Yes, I did find them actually.
Who do you think hid them? Who do we need to fight?
What were you saying?
I said now that you've got your headphones on. Who do we need to fight? Who do we think hid them? Where were they?
So Jeff Walker definitely came into the studio and took my headphones.
If you had given me one guess, 100% Jeff Walker.
Yep.
100%. All right, Jeff Walker. You come in, sometimes you just barge in, you're like, hey, I'm here. And I'm like, cool, like, what are you doing here? Which is fine, Jeff's a delight, but can you please leave my guy's headphones alone? He's a professional radio producer, he's got things to do.
Thank you, Craig. Thank you.
You're welcome.
My favorite story is, I think we were playing Cincinnati. Was it Cincinnati?
That's not what depends on the story, but maybe we were playing Cincinnati.
So Logan catches this touchdown.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that was Cincinnati. Yep.
What up? What happening on a Tuesday? A Victory Tuesday. Yes, winning is always better than losing, boys and girls. And the Commanders beat the Ravens last night, ending the win streak, the whole deal. Troy Aikman called it the most exciting preseason game he's ever been a part of, and you watched it, and now we're going to talk about it here on the Team 980. If you're new to the show, first of all, you can catch us all kinds of ways, not only here on the radio, but on YouTube at the Team 980. So if you're driving home, you get home, want to keep consuming the show, flip on your smart TV, click over to the Team 980. Throw us on. But also on the Odyssey app, you can keep listening that way, 1067 HD2, all the different ways. And again, if you're new, and new here is you're joined us at some point since the end of last football season. What we do every single day after game is we do not waste any time. Despite what I'm doing right now, we do not waste any time. We get right to it with 10 observations from the game. It's the first thing we do, which is why we call it First and 10.
It's time to get the breakdown started. 1, 2, 3, First up, 10 observations.
Mr. Good guy and just boom, put him right on the ground.
It's First and 10.
Yeah, and we got fancy new imaging for it too. I'm pretty pumped about it. Here we go. 10 observations from the Commanders. 29-28 win over the Ravens. First one, most important one.
Number 1.
Terry McLaurin's hurt. I didn't say it would all be exciting. This was the risk. And I think playing Sam Howell last night, perfectly defensible decision. It's something that we talked about. I don't know that it would have been worth it because at the end of the day, while Howell looked great, we'll get to that in number 2, he did do it against Baltimore's 2s. Part of the problem of playing Howell, though, is you had to play everyone else to give him the best chance to succeed, and that included Terry McLaurin. And the good news here is that the team says they're optimistic about his availability for week 1. The good news here is that it's nothing serious in the long term, although toe injuries are scary. And the good news is Jahan Dotson is a little monster, and he is coming for DBs across the NFL. So you have depth at the position. Curtis Samuel was effective last night. De'Ami Brown was effective last night. And they have, they can always use Gibson in creative ways. Like, they've got weapons. And in that way, they're not as screwed as another team might be if they lost a Terry McLaurin caliber weapon. But let's not get this twisted. You still potentially are going to be without, at least week 1, a Terry McLaurin caliber weapon. This was a bit of a self-imposed error here to leave Terry in that long, even though you wanted to get the reps. I get it. but you don't get anything for winning this game. Winning better than losing. Losing player like Terry McLaurin, way worse than winning the game. So, not going to crush Ron. It's not indefensible. It is the number one story. It's the most important thing that comes out of this game. And, like, not to go all medical dork on you here, but your toes are really important. And they can potentially cause other problems if you rush back because your gait changes, right? So a guy like McLaurin gets out there on a bad toe. He runs a little funky. It winds up putting a little extra pressure on the ankle. Now you got a bad ankle. Now you're compensating for the ankle. Now you got to figure out, okay, well, my ankle hurts. I got to make that hurt less. And you do something funky with your knee, then your hip, then your back. Like, it just goes up the chain. That's how these things work. And the toe is the first step in the kinetic chain. And it happens to be a really important one because it's the one that makes contact with the ground. So, they outsmart medical people. They don't need me to tell them, but I'm telling you, I would be very surprised if McLaurin practices before at least Wednesday before the Arizona game. There's just no reason to, unless they are able to take the testing and, next week it's healed. It was that minor. But taking it really easy with him and John Allen, by the way, with plantar fasciitis, yikes, man. Your two captains, your two team leaders might not be 100% week one, which is obviously not ideal. By the way, here was Ron Rivera last night on McLaurin after the game.
There was an x-ray, it was negative, and so, they're just going to treat it day by day.
Okay, I'm sorry I played that. Off we go to more positive things.
Number 2.
Sam Howell showed up big time last night. His first game after being named the starter. Look, it's the Ravens backups, but you take the test that's in front of you. You can't take the AP exam in first grade. You just take the one that they give you, and you hope to spell all the words right. Unless it's a math exam, then you get all the equations right. You know the drill. You do what you're asked to do. And last night, outside of really 2 plays, 3, 4 if you want to count a couple of errant throws, but two quasi-major mistakes, the sacks, which we can talk about. Outside of that, he was awesome. And by the way, on the series where he takes the sacks, he makes other big plays. You come take a sack on second down, you got third and super long, and you drill Cole Turner between the 8 and the 5 after buying a little time in the pocket. Are you kidding me? That's major league quarterbacking. And the thing that I think that impresses me the most about Sam Howell is he is so freaking calm in the pocket. And that is even when there is pressure, and he knows there's going to be pressure. But here's the thing about pressure. If you have solutions, and especially when the solution is, we got enough guys to block this, you don't need to rush. Because now all of a sudden, you should have numbers on the back end. If they're bringing 7 instead of 4, they're down 3 on the back end. Sweet. We got enough eligibles out there still that one of our guys can shake loose. And you saw him time and time again. Maybe a little slide, maybe a little flush. Sometimes he had to run. That's fine. Sometimes that is the solution to pressure, is buy yourself enough time, let the pressure come after you, then use the fact that you're genuinely fast to run away from it. And those big fellas chasing you aren't as fast as you. And Sam did that a couple times. But there's even 1 or 2 plays where he faces pressure and he just sits there and he's like, we're good. We got this. Wait for it. Dart. Can't do it better than that. Sam was really, really good last night. 2 quick notes on the sacks. We went way deeper, frankly, than we probably should have on Take Command on them. I felt bad because we spent so much time breaking them down that, the good stuff section and the 2 sack section wound up being equal time. And I was like, that's not really resembling of his game. So if that came off as negative, apologize. That's on me as the host of the pod. If you listen to our breakdown there. But I'll quickly go through the 2 sacks because it's the same exact thing. Basically, the defense dictates a slide, and then they overload away from the slide. So they know, hey, this is how they're going to protect this. And remember, these 2 teams practice against each other this week. So, it's not that hard for the Ravens to do this. And if the Commanders had been game planning, they probably would have had better solutions for this. But also sometimes, DCs get paid too. It's the kind of stuff that if Jack Del Rio did this, we'd be complimenting him. And, it's straight out of what Wink Martindale did to this team last year. You get the slide going right. You bring a couple extra players off the left. The quarterback's got to realize that he's hot. The first one, Sam just got to get the ball out. He's probably got Jahan on a quick out that he could probably complete. At the very least, he could have gotten the ball at someone's shoes, not take the sack. I will give him credit on the second time. He realized that he was toast. I don't even know if there's anything he could have done on that one, but he cocooned up, made sure he didn't have a sack fumble situation. So he at least gets a little bit of awareness credit post-snap, even if they did not have the right protection called pre-snap. Overall, 19 of 25, buck 88, 2 touchdowns and a half. That's some good footballing, kiddos. That's a 370-yard, 4-touchdown game if you extrapolate it out. Take that any day of the week, plus a 2-minute drive. And that throw to De'Ami Brown. Woo! Love that. Overall, offense, the efficiency to the playmakers, how often Terry got the ball, how often Jahan got the ball, 7 targets, a lot of them coming right after Terry gets out. Curtis gets his touches. Cole Turner gets his touches. How about a half of football with the ones where you don't come out being like, oh, that guy needed the ball more. Gibson got some. Robinson got some. Like, the fact that this team goes up tempo and they actually are going to convert and get first downs means there's going to be enough plays for the playmakers to get balls. And that is extremely exciting for a team that was the exact opposite last year. All right, continuing on down the list, our observations from the game. 1st and 10, we call them.
Number 3.
All right, pass protection plans matter, which is a fairly obvious statement. But why am I saying that after last night? You could see, if you have the nuanced eye to do it, how Eric Bieniemy thinks about protection. Step one, mixing up of play calls. You got to keep defenses honest. A mix of screens, quick game. Like, you want to fire off the ball, great. We're getting the ball out before you even, get your head up out of your stance. They had a couple of those in there. You want to sit back, and because the defense or the pass rush solution to quick game is to get your hands up. You want to do that and slow your pass rush? Fine. We'll take advantage, take some deeper drops, try to push the ball down the field. Okay, you want to come get us because we're in deeper drops. Now we hit you with a screen, some smart screening, third and like medium. It's not a super common screen play call situation. Bieniemy gets one for a first down last night. But it's beyond that. It's max protect in certain situations. It's amazingly executed chip help last night. If you want to have real fun and feel really smart going back and watching this game, pull it up, start watching the Commanders offense, watch Antonio Gibson on every snap that he's in. Because on 3 or 4 of them, he's going to go smash a defensive end. And what was different, I feel like, this week versus some other times in practice, and even I think this happened once or twice in the Cleveland game, is sometimes chips are actually not helpful for an offensive lineman because they set a certain way and they're in position, and then the running back chips the D end out of the way. And now he's got a free path because the offensive lineman was set where he thought he was going. No, Antonio Gibson chipped those linemen. Like, say the O lineman would set a little bit inside, telling the defensive end, hey, man, I'm going to give you a little bit. I'm not letting you win inside. You want to beat me? Go outside. Haha, tricked you. Here's Gibson. Bang, coming from the outside. Knocks him right back in. That is exactly how you do that. And from a route concept standpoint, they did it in situations where then that back could leak to the flat. And there's once or twice where that either the back got the ball or that opened up a little bit of space in a different area of the field because the linebacker had to pull up onto the back or the DB had to pull up onto the back in the flat, creating a larger window for Howell on a downfield target. These details matter, and they were on display time and time again last night. I just think that Eric Bieniemy might be good at this offensive coordinator thing. Might know a thing or two.
Number 4.
Y'all, Jahan Dotson's going to have a monster year. Last night, he had 7 targets. He played a half. Like, what? Anthony, I wish we had gone back before the game and we had taken a look at Jahan Dotson's targets for every game and Terry McLaurin's targets for every game last year. How many times do you think combined they got 7 targets in a game?
Combined?
Like, McLaurin 7+ target games, Dotson 7+ target games.
0.
I don't think it's 0.
All right, maybe like 4.
Yeah, I would say 4 or 5. Tell you what, can you look that up for me?
Yep.
And we'll
you
circle
said
back to it.
7 plus combined.
Yeah. So no, 7. Either one of them has 7 targets.
Okay. Yeah,
that's
probably
what
4.
Yeah, that's what we're looking up. All right, so we'll get back to that. Jahan had 7 last night in a half of a preseason game. This dude's going to have at least 85 catches, if not over 100. He's going to have over 1,000 yards. Hammer every single freaking over you can find on Jahan Dotson and then pray that he stays healthy because this kid is a monster. His route running nuance, the smoothness with which he does it, you'd see him get downfield, and it doesn't even look like he's running, and then he'd be able to just stop on a dime, come back, but he's 4.3 fast. He's flying. It's just, and his catch radius is great. His hands are phenomenal. Like, he's just so quarterback friendly. I mean, I did not, like, when I did the draft a couple years ago, because I anchored our draft coverage the year they took him in the first round, I had a whole list of receivers. He was not one that I had really looked at for first round draft coverage. It was a reach by most independent analysis. They stole that kid at 16 2 years ago. They deserve so much credit for it. He's so freaking good. And I think, again, whether Terry is starting the season on inactive or not, like, I think Jahan's going to lead this team in catches this year as long as he plays, 15, 16 games. Nevertheless, if he can play all 17. Just insane production potential from him. Last thing on the offensive side of the ball from last night.
Number 5.
Chris Rodriguez, fumble. That is not good. But Eric Bieniemy is of a philosophy that if you were to, say, fumble the football, we're going to go right back to you, especially in the preseason. We're going to build your confidence. And it matters because you want to know who was the best running back on the field as a rusher last night? Part due to opportunity, but it was Chris Rodriguez. Again, he was really good. Averaged over 6 a carry, which is actually an improvement over his 5+ a carry in the first game. Like, he's been sensational outside of one carry where his arm got peeled off the ball. Can't happen. Dudes are peeling at your arms all the time in the NFL. It's not like something special happened there. That's a bad fumble. But literally the first offensive snap after that, Bieniemy gets him the ball, and I freaking love that from Bieniemy, and I love that from Chris Rodriguez to come back and continue to play well. All right, let's flip to the defense.
Number 6.
The middle of the defense struggled a lot. Middle width-wise, middle depth-wise. There's a lot of catches against cover 2 behind the linebackers in front of the safeties last night. And that's the weak part of the defense. And, it's not Cam Curl and Derek Forrest, so I'm not going to freak out. But it was Cody Martin a couple times. That's not ideal. Quan Martin in the middle there had a couple of issues last night, but I do think he bounced back well overall. But they've got to get that figured out. Teams are going to attack them there. It's the place that feels the softest. I do think it will be obviously a lot harder to do when they have that defensive line, but coverage weakness last night, exploited for multiple touchdowns in the red zone, exploited in the middle of the field. That is a little concerning. As concerning as anything can be when the players on the field might not be on your roster in 2 weeks, or by the end of the week, really. But if we're going observations from the game last night, a lot of Ravens yardage and some of their touchdowns came specifically against cover 2 in the middle of the field, and some of them were over Cody Barton's head, and he is going to be on the team and on the field when the starters are out there. All right, speaking of areas that struggled last night.
Number 7.
Some issues in terms of lack of communication in the secondary. And this gets to the Quan Martin, Rashad Wild Goose snafus of the night. They actually had a little bit similar nights because there's definitely some really bad plays for Wild Goose, and there's definitely the one pretty big stinker, the Zay Flowers touchdown, where Quan Martin, and that's just, it's a confusion, and then, the pursuit's lackluster to say the least. But he doesn't give up, and neither does Wild Goose. Both those guys just continue to compete, and even when Wild Goose at the end of the first half gets picked on, and he gets scored on, I'm not sure that call at the end of the first half, the touchdown on him, doesn't survive a challenge if Ron Rivera wanted to throw the flag there. I don't think he can because it's a scoring play, and it's weird that it got confirmed so quickly because Wild Goose knocks that ball out really quickly after it's secured, if it's secured, because it's a catch, it's a bobble. He's swiping at it. I guess the Ravens receiver caught it and was down, and once you catch it and you're down in the end zone, play's over. So there's no real swipe. But if that happens in the field of play, there's no way they're calling that a completion because he never completes a football move. Yet in the end zone, it is. So it's hard for me to crush Wild Goose when I look at that play and I just don't disagree with it. It's kind of like crushing Quan Martin a week ago when they called him for defensive pass interference and it wasn't defensive pass interference. Like, that's on the ref. That's not on Quan Martin. So I will give both of those guys, and obviously with Quan, after giving up the Zay Flowers play, the first touchdown, looks like he's about to get beat for another one, but he just has incredible recovery speed. He plays his technique absolutely perfect to play through the hands of the receiver, and he comes down with a pick and gets a nice return to boot, and the competitive spirit shows. And that's part of being, in his case, a second-round pick. The competitive spirit of Rashad Wildgoose is part of trying to fight for your life in the NFL and make this roster. Ultimately, when we get to our roster projection later, I don't know it's going to be enough because he has struggled on the outside at a position where he's got to be, I would say, competent to have the positional flexibility. He can't just be a good nickel to make this roster. But I, while saying that those two had issues last night, also want to commend them on their competitive character and their competitive spirit. All right, some odds and ends to wrap up here on our 1st and 10 observations. First things first here in the show.
Number 8.
The Josh Harris interview. Oh, it was so good. So incredibly awkward. So incredibly human to people who were awkward. I don't know. I got a lot of tweets asking if he was drunk. I don't know. I was texting with a reporter who's covered him for a while outside of football, and they were like, nah, that's just him. He's kind of awkward. The handshake thing. I saw my buddy Tommy Vitor from Pod Save America tweet out the video and said he would have cut his hand off if he had done the handshake thing that he did with Joe Buck. But all the awkwardness and the goofiness and the fun, and credit, like, the Commanders social media team had some fun with it afterwards, which never would have happened under the old guy. And that's the point. We can laugh, we can giggle, and Josh Harris, I'm sure, is slightly embarrassed at some of that, but also is just like, whatever. What am I going to do? He seems to have the ability to laugh at himself, and people aren't scared of him. And the owner of the team gave an interview on national television for funsies. What planet do we live on? One where Dan Snyder doesn't own the team anymore, and that's awesome, and we should celebrate it at every turn, which is why I wanted to mention all of this with a gigantic smile on my face.
Number 9.
Turn that smile upside down. Let's have a frown for Cameron Cheeseman. You can't rock skip a snap back on a field goal. That's not good. We don't like that. Bad snapping. I've tried to inquire if they're going to bring in some long snappers. Have not received word from any sources quite yet. But Rivera told me last week, straight up, if they don't get the snapping issues straightened out by the game, then they're going to have to take it seriously as a potential problem. Bringing in a long snapper to compete over the last couple of weeks of camp / before the regular season is not that hard to do. There's a bunch of dudes out there. There's, there's 150 Division I long snappers every single year. Let's say 80 of them, or 50 of them even, come out in the draft, and there's only 32 NFL long snapping jobs. Like, the talent pool stacks up. There's plenty of dudes who can long snap in the NFL out there. Not to be dismissive. I'm not saying I'm one of them, but there's dudes available. They got to bring one in, and if they can't get Cheeseman's technique fixed in the next couple of weeks, like, I'm sorry, Ron, the guy you traded up for, that's an issue. I don't want to go there, but I think we all know what I'm saying here. And last but not least, ladies and gentlemen,
Number 10.
the streak is over. We had to say it. The Commanders are the first team to beat the Baltimore Ravens in a preseason game since 2015, since Lamar Jackson was a freshman at Louisville. He hadn't even made his debut yet. And you know what? I appreciate this perspective from Ravens coach John Harbaugh when he was asked about it afterwards.
Yeah, it's just I'm excited. Think about something like that. And I just told our guys, you're proud of it, of course. You appreciate it. But the thing that you're proud of is all those games are mostly just like that. Preseason games that people want to write about. Some of you in here want to write about and say they don't mean anything because you never played the game. You never were out there in a preseason game. You never were fighting for a spot on the field. And yet you have the audacity to say that the effort that somebody puts into that to win and fight and win a game like that is meaningless. Tell me that was meaningless out there, what you just saw. If you like football, is that a meaningless football game? I can't respect anybody that says that because of the effort these guys put into it. That's what you're proud of. That's why I'm so proud of these guys for the way they fought. It doesn't matter win or loss. It matters the way they went about their business tonight, and I'm proud of them for that. Always will be.
You know, Harbaugh's says some things sometimes that make you roll your eyes, but that's good stuff, man. And we can say, like, it doesn't matter. And it doesn't in terms of the two teams winning a championship. And that's all any of us that are writing about this stuff or talking about it are saying is, like, last night, the Commanders winning that game does not help them win a championship in terms of the standings and you know, that side of it. But if we're being realistic about it, this matters to the guys on the field. And anyone who's ever competed in anything knows you want to win. Winning is better than losing 100% of the time, all the time, every time, without exception that I can think of, unless there was some kind of like weird family dynamic where you feel bad for beating your brother or something, right? And winning is a result of guys playing hard, and there is a lot on the line. These games mean everything to the guys out there at the end of them trying to make their livelihoods in the NFL with their dreams on the line. So the wins and losses are a result of that effort, and the Ravens should be proud of that. They've consistently found a depth of talent and a quality of competitive character that they won that many preseason games in a row when no one ever did. Do they get to put another Lombardi trophy in their case for it? No. Does it compare to winning an NFL playoff game or certainly a Super Bowl? Of course not. But it's not nothing. And so I don't blame Harbaugh, and I'm not going to make fun of him for caring about it on some level. Just like I'm not going to be mad at the Commanders for rubbing a little salt in the wound for ending it with their social media and the fan bases chirping and all that kind of stuff. This is what sports are about. They're fun. You compete. There's winner and there's loser. Commanders won last night. First time in a long time on that side of it for the Ravens. Congrats to the Burgundy and Gold for the victory. We get back. More breakdown. Logan Paulsen's thoughts on Sam Howell's performance and more. Take command next here on the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Time to hear from the one and only Logan Paulsen. Take command breakdown. We recorded this morning and got it out as soon as we could. So if you want to make sure that you are loaded up, ready to go, as soon as Take Command hits the podcast feed, whenever it is that we record an episode, make sure you subscribe on Apple Podcasts, on the free Odyssey app, on Spotify, Google Play, wherever it is that you get your pods, or on 106.7 The Fans YouTube page for full episodes. Clips as well at Craig Hoffman on YouTube on my page. And without further ado, a breakdown of Sam Howell's day and a little bit more from this morning's pod. Full pod, including a defensive breakdown, available now. But without further ado, Howell breakdown from Logan and your boy.
It's time to take command with former NFL tight end Logan Paulsen and former Commanders beat reporter Craig Hoffman.
Take Command podcast from Odyssey Sports. That is Logan Paulsen. I am Craig Hoffman. And the Commanders get the win last night. They do end the streak, but there's a lot more to talk about with Sam Howell playing an entire half. A lot of the offensive starters joining him. The injury to Terry McLaurin shows the risk side of that equation. Plenty of defensive starters played as well, Logan. So plenty to chew on from last night.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, everyone is going to be talking about the streak, and it's cool. I think it is. It's a cool little tidbit that's going to be used in trivia one day. But, in terms of being meaningful or saying the Commanders have arrived, I'm not sure that it's that kind of data point. I think there's other things in the game that are definitely more significant. So, yeah, it's cool. It's fun. I think it's really fun for those kind of back end of the roster guys, like that got to do the 2-minute drive, and you got to see Fromm and how absolutely fired up he was on the sideline, and some guys, some young receivers making huge plays, offensive line pass protecting. That's huge for those guys, no doubt, because they're going to get a ton of visibility off of that. But, in terms of the grand scheme of things, I don't think it really matters, so.
Yeah, no, not at all. But winning's always better than losing. And I think what was cool is you get a little bit of situational football. You get to see, obviously the threes. But, at the end of the first half, the one's got a 2-minute drive as well. Let's start off big picture, though. Not big picture wins and losses, but big picture strategy. Like, they played a lot more than certainly I think we would have played them if we were in Ron Rivera's position. They played a lot more than I think even people who thought they were going to play were ultimately said, like, hey, they'll play, a couple of series. Don't expect much. Sam Howell and company were out there the entire half. Andrew Wiley played one series, but then it was behind the two backup tackles with Leno not dressing. Trent Scott was the guy who got the number 2 call at right tackle. He replaced Andrew Wiley after just one series, and he and Cornelius Lucas held down the fort. I thought the offensive line was very good. The 2 sacks Howell said were on him, and I don't think he's just covering from the O-line there. No, but what'd you make of that much play time against Baltimore's 2s? And knowing that it was going to be against their 2s going in.
Yeah, 43 reps, man. That's a lot of reps in a preseason game for anybody, And so I don't know. I think it's something that I think we wanted. I don't know if we wanted him to play that much, but I think we both acknowledged in the pregame pod that it would be better if Sam did play. And I think this is one of the reasons why. You just get him seeing NFL defenses. You get him working the chemistry with Terry and Jahan and Curtis and again, in some ways, like people are like, oh, it's against the 2s, and I'm one of those people. Like, this isn't real football. This is not what he's going to be seeing on Sundays. But in the same way that you would scale a workout or you scale anything in your life, right, to kind of work up to that elite level of stuff. Like, this is a really nice thing to do and people say, well, why is that, Logan? And for me, one of the things that I think is tremendously valuable is you get the quarterback seeing and going through progressions against a very good defense. It's going to be maybe not quite as good as what he's seeing in practice, not quite as good as what he's been seeing against, like in the joint practices, but it does allow him to kind of work the drill in a way that he hasn't been able to work the drill. Like one year, I remember we did with Mike, what we did is we kind of split the team up in terms of 1s would go against 2s and 2s would go against 1s. Like 2 offense would go against the 1 defense and vice versa. And we had 2 completely separate practices. And that was the year that like I got really good at football, honestly, just because I got more reps. And I think that's what you're seeing with Sam. Is like you're seeing him get more reps against a pretty good defense. And again, like the rush isn't going to be what it's going to be. The coverage isn't going to be what it's going to be. But I think like those reps are super, super important. And, like, would we have played him that much? Would I have played him that much? Probably not. But again, like, I think I think Ron understand how important it is for him to get those reps. And I think for his development, it just gives you like a confidence going into week one that like, hey man, like he's seen it, he's done it, he's looked great, he's looked sharp. And so, yeah, that's kind of like my thought on that.
Yeah. I mean, they're not as difficult reps as will be, I don't know, Arizona's not very good, but against, the best teams in the league, obviously, against ones and even against Arizona. Like, these are backups compared to what Arizona's got, which they've got, there's no Buda Baker out there last night, right? But these are all, like, this is way harder than it was in college. Like, these are the best players in all of college football under NFL defensive coordinator out there, doing their thing. So this is the hardest game outside of the Dallas game that Sam Howell has probably ever played in, and that's valuable. I think you see the downside. The reason you don't do it is because of the injury, and if McLaurin is out for a while, like, yikes, man, like that's tough. But when we said we wouldn't have done it that much, it was just to mitigate that risk, mitigate that downside. It's not to say that this wasn't valuable. And I think that kind of can get lost in the argument. It's like, oh, well, he's survived. Now you're saying it's good. You said it was, not worth it. And, it's easy to say after the fact when the risk does not, go that direction that, oh, well, you guys were wrong. And it's like, no, the risk was there the whole time. It was just a matter of percentages and you didn't want to end up on the wrong side of it. But now that it's done, now that Sam gets out of this game clean, I think you can definitely talk about the value of these reps and what you saw. And I think what you see, a couple things that really impressed me, obviously some of the quick game stuff, gets the ball out quickly, on time, on target. And I love how there's answers in this offense for the quarterback.
Sure.
Aikman regarded on that in the broadcast as well, that, when you watch the Kansas City offense, when you watch this offense, you see the answers there quickly. And I think Sam in those situations did a good job of getting the ball out to the right place. You're locked in on one guy. It's there. You make the throw. If not, you quickly get to the next. And I thought he was good on that. But I think the biggest thing, Logan, for me that I was impressed with was how confident he was in the offensive line. He never panics. And, there are times that he scrambles, but there's times, and like that's the right play. But there are times that he knows pressure is coming and he's like, they're going to pick it up. And often you see quarterbacks, when they know pressure is coming, even if the O-line picks it up, they still feel rushed. They still feel hurried. And there were times last night he's just like, all right, we got it. Like, I'm going to sit back here and let these longer routes develop because now their numbers down on the back end. And some of their bigger plays come against pressure that the O-line and the backs pick up. And Sam's willing to just sit there and let the protection do its thing and dart a ball to someone down the field from the pocket.
Yeah, and I think that's another one of the advantages of working in this situation is because like you get to build a confidence in the O-line. Like just think about how it looked against Cleveland. Obviously in the first preseason game, like there was a more pressure. We talked about how good the four guys played, and Wiley had a tough outing in terms of giving up a lot of pressure. But even that, like, it felt faster. It was the pockets compressed more quickly, and I think that's something you're going to see more probably. Obviously in a regular season game, but one of the advantages here of like ones working against twos is that he gets to sit and trust the protection, know that his guys are going to win one-on-one matchups, and like you said, see the concepts in a way that he can't see them in practice. Then it's very akin to like a 7-on-7 plus. And I think that was one of the advantages for Sam is he got to really feel the protection. The O-line won their matchups. It's not like there's bad rushers out there, but definitely not the guys that we were talking about in practice. Like, Pierce isn't out there. The kid from Penn State isn't out there for them, like Queen and Roquan Smith. None of those guys are out there. So it's going to feel and move a little bit different. It's going to be like, almost in slow motion. And I think that's what you saw is you got to see him kind of execute the offense at a high level. And I think that's something you mentioned the answers within the offense. I think you got to see that. You get to see him work through that, which is something that I think is super important. So, again, like I think this is good. It's good for him to get the reps. And I think, you mentioned that, we were kind of like anti him playing. I don't know if we were anti him playing. What I was anti is that if he was going to play, that all the other starters were going to play. That was something that I was kind of anti. And so, that's why like Terry McLaurin, like you're exposing him kind of unnecessarily. And like you pointed this out, like every time you play football, you're exposing yourself to a certain amount of risk. But I don't know. I think overall, feel good about what Sam did, feel really good about what the offense did. I think it's important to give it the context that, hey, this isn't the ones. But I think when you look at the performance, you say, man, that's excellent. And I also like wanted to give a little bit of context in the sense that, like, how many years have we seen somebody go out and ball in the preseason that struggled in the regular season? So again, like, this is important. This is like a really good practice. And in terms of informing your decision about Sam, I think it's all positive, right? But it's also important to remember that this is even though it looks like NFL football, it's not quite NFL football yet. So just keep that in mind. I'm not saying Sam's going to be bad or anything like that. What I am saying, though, is, like, just keep that context and keep that perspective, because it's not always going to look like this from an offensive standpoint for this team.
Totally. We've used this phrasing before, but, like, you can only take the test that's in front of you, right?
Sure, yeah.
There's nothing he could do last night that could make us go, like, oh, yeah, this guy's going to be great in NFL football, or he's crushing NFL football, because there wasn't regular season NFL football to be played last night. It's just that he had to play preseason, and that's he did a good job of it.
He did a great. He did, and, like, to be clear, he did excellent. He looked excellent. Like, to your point, like, didn't he had the couple, like, where he kind of, there's a pressure, it's empty, he takes a sack. I think he did that twice. Don't love that, but that's him learning as a young football player.
Can we walk through both those sacks real quick? Do you have a good feel for what happened? I know one of them, the slide seemed to go the wrong way.
So let's see if I can remember correctly. On the first one, basically, like, it's the same pressure that got him against, or a very similar pressure, not exactly the same. It's the same pressure that got him against Cleveland. And so what they did is they basically brought a 4-man overload to a 3-man slide. So they're in kind of a pseudo, I think it's empty. I don't remember exactly where the back is. But they have a 3-man slide. So the center, Cosme, and the right tackle, I think was Foster at the time, are working to the right. What they do is they take the defensive tackle, they basically pick the center. Right now you have a 2-man slide, and there's 3 rushers coming there, right? So one of those guys is going to come free. And I think that's something that I'd like to see him get a little bit more comfortable with, is just understanding, like, hey, if we get 2 here, this ball's got to get out, because it seemed to surprise him. Now, it came really quick because it's a free runner. It's essentially, we talked about it a lot. It's essentially, like, at its core principle, what Wink Martindale was doing to Scott Turner's offense last year when they played in the second game, or the first game last year in the second half of the year. It's, you just find ways to overload the slide, dictate the slide, then overload the slide. And they did that. And, like, it was a good pressure, and it's the same thing. Like, it happened, something similar happened in their blitz period on the Tuesday practice, and Sam threw it away because he identified it. Didn't identify it as quickly here. And so I think that's part of the issue, right? The second sack is
on that one real quick, just the downfield portion. It does look like there wasn't really a great place to throw. I think if he had room to step up, he might have been able to get one to Terry on the second level on that high cross.
So but to me, like, I'm going to call nonsense on that. Like, so, and again, like, so the way I read it, the way I read the concept is that's like what we would call like a Tony fork concept. So Tony is like a 5-yard out by Jahan in this case, and a clear. So some people call it stick, but like in other versions of the offense, they call it Tony. And then on the backside, you have a shallow cross, a mid cross, and then like a basic or a dig by number 1. So you get 3 guys running into your vision. So what I'm going to say is, like, the first read in that progression is the out. The receiver.
And that one I don't remember seeing on the replay. So if that one was open, that's the one I couldn't see on the because they showed the, like, sky cam from behind replay, and that one was out of vision.
So for me, if that on that out, like the receiver, the receiver, I think it was Gibson to the far right, outside releases, which is exactly right. The corner carries. Jahan doesn't run out of it, which is exactly right. Just throw the ball to Jahan. That's your first read, especially versus pressure. And that's the thing that, again, like, where you're identifying, like, what's going on, like, that's good. Get the ball there. I also thought he could have hit the low cross, right? Because the linebacker, it was a zone pressure. So they brought 4 to the offensive right. They dropped the left defensive end out. The middle linebacker had to push to the out route, who is Jahan in this case. So there's a huge void right over the middle of the ball where you can throw to the cross, or if that backside safety starts cutting, which he didn't cut, but, like, there's a nice window there for Terry too. So I thought he could have hit the out, he could have hit the cross, and he could have hit the mid cross, is what I thought. So to me, it's just like he didn't, and that's something that you do pre-snap. You identify the pressure pre-snap and the ball, and you say, okay, where's my option? And again, you're not saying this is going to be a completed pass, right? It's just, can I get the ball out of my hand?
Right.
To one of these
And that's
guys?
what I was going to say is like, I don't know, especially the stuff over the ball that I feel like I had a better sense of. I got to go back and watch it, admittedly, on the out and in general. But
and it's not
on
a
the
clean,
stuff
like,
over
so
the
to be
ball.
clear,
Yeah.
It's not super clean.
Yeah.
I'm saying it's
there's
NFL
there's
clean.
enough space to get the ball out. Whether
Yes.
it's completed or not is different. And that's what I was going to say is like, you've got to get it, whether it's completed or not, or you throw it at his shoelaces, like you've got to get the ball out. You can't take the sack. And that, that there 100% is time for. It all happens very quickly. There's pressure in the face, but there's enough time to get it at someone's shoes, even if you can't get a completion. And like you said, if you can recognize it pre-snap and you see the good release by Gibson, say on the out, then you should hopefully be able to get a completion.
Yeah, and just to be clear, Gibson's outside releasing on a go, so the corner's going to get wide with that. So there was a pocket there. I thought he could throw to Jahan, who's on the out. But again, like that's one of the things that makes like Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Drew Brees elite, is because pre-snap they did such a good job of identifying what the coverage was. I mean, you've seen those clips floating around on Instagram or YouTube where Tom Brady tells the back, "Hey man, it's Tampa 2," like before the ball is even snapped. "Hey, I need you to get to. Hey, it's Tampa 2, get out." And like that is what makes Tom Brady super special. That's what made, like, I remember hearing stories about Peyton Manning or Andrew Luck even identifying blitzes just based on rotations and keys or whatever. I don't even know what they're looking at because it all looks the same to me. But that is the elite ability that says like, okay, we're getting this 4-man overload. Where's my hot? Okay, it's the Tony. Let's get the ball out real quick. Like catch and throw kind of thing. Because we're not going to be protected. There's 4-man rushing to 3 protectors. Like someone will be coming free. Now, I don't know exactly how the O-line is supposed to pick that up. Sometimes you're supposed to squeeze it. Usually you don't squeeze to a slide. Actually, I've never seen anybody squeeze to a slide. But again, I'm assuming the O-line did that correctly. I think that's on Sam. Again, get the ball out. And again, that is something we've talked about a couple times in blitz periods and stuff like that. That has to be the hardest thing for a young quarterback, especially with like these kind of amorphous defenses. Like that's a zone pressure, right? It's very, very complicated. So, and also I want to point this out. If they were prepping this blitz and they knew that was going to happen, like what they would do is that left tackle who's getting the dropper would squeeze down and they could make that a full slide and they could probably pick that up. So again, like if they were game planning this pressure, I don't think it's as big of an issue, but for the preseason game, obviously they weren't able to kind of, work their magic and get it picked up. So,
yeah. Aaron Rodgers also famous for going to the line, walking up to it. And like in the same way, same, demeanor as most quarterbacks point out the mic, he'll just go, "You're blitzing, you're dropping, you're blitzing." And linebackers are just like, "Do I do what he said? Because that's what I was supposed to do. Or do we try to mix it up? Do we?" Oh, damn it. He knows. Second sack seems like everybody slid right. It's a 4-man pressure and a 5-man protection. And someone comes free on the left. Yeah, that was outside.
That was literally that one was exactly the same pressure that they got versus Wink Martindale, where they basically run. I'm trying to remember. They had like a true nose, if I remember correctly, and then they bring 2 guys inside the end who's dropping. So when that happens, the guard, so they basically had 3 rushers to a 2-man to the man side of the protection. So we just talked about the slide side where 3 guys are pushing. This one, there was 3 rushers to a 2-man protection. So Cornelius, when he gets that internal rusher, has to squeeze that because it's to the man side. The quickest way to the quarterback is the inside gap. So you protect those up. You leave the outside rusher for the quarterback, like understanding that he's got to identify, hey, I'm hot here, and he just doesn't see it, right? And again, that's a youthful thing. That's something you're not going to game plan as much in this situation. So I'm not going to like crush Sam for not identifying it. But those are the issues, right? Those are the things that come up. They come up in blitz period. They come up all the time. It's hard playing quarterback in the NFL. It's especially hard when you're not prepping for it. So I think the O-line handled both of those about as well as you could handle, and it's up to Sam to kind of say, hey, the ball's got to get out.
Yeah, I will say something that Sam did well on that one, though, is he recognized it immediately post-snap and cocooned. He protected the football. He didn't try to do anything crazy. He's just like, all right, well, I'm dead on this play. Let's minimize the damage. And there's points for that. Sack fumbles, very bad. So at least he gets that credit on that sack. But he said on the sidelines to Lisa Salters and repeated after the game, and apparently he told Ron the same thing, that both the sacks were on him.
Yeah, and I would say Yes. Like looking at how the O-line blocked it, look at their rules from training camp. Yes, I would say they're both on him. But again, I would also say that's not entirely true in this sense. If you're prepping these blitzes in the regular season, you will have more answers than what they're doing. We're just like, hey, we're in empty. You got to squeeze this. Sam, figure it out. It's like we might use a dummy cadence. We might use a false cadences are great to show blitzes, right? That allow us to check to a different play or allow us to alert a hot or allow us to get to a different concept. So I just think like it is Sam's fault, but also he doesn't have every tool, every club in the bag available for some of this stuff. So while that is Sam's fault, I think that's part of it. So
yeah, definitely. And that's probably, apologies for the inequitable time on 2 mistakes on a night where he was largely fantastic.
No, yeah.
But the offensive line's been a huge talking point. On everything, for more on the skill position guys and of course on the defense, you can check out the full episode of Take Command anywhere you get your podcasts, including on YouTube. The full episode's on 106.7 The Fans page. When we get back here on the Team 980, Matt Paris joins us for Not My Beat. We got our roster projection later on in the show. Plus, a couple of things we need to follow up on from yesterday. 5:45 yesterday, we had some of the biggest position battles in camp so far. How did they play out in the game? And we picked 6 guys for our pick 6 as the most important players. Well, let's see how those 6 did in today's pick 6. Also to come here on the Hoffman Show, streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980, of course on the Team 980 on the radio, and always live on the free Odyssey app.
You can listen to
They tell us we should not really engage in certain parts of the content process. We should definitely post our content. We should tease our content. Hey, tell the people when things are happening on the show. Put that out there on social media. Then make sure you share the content afterwards. But definitely do not engage with the people who comment on it. It's the deepest, darkest underbelly of the internet. No. Do not read the comments. But every single week, 5:30 on a Wednesday, what do we do, Anthony Haney?
We read
Yep.
those comments, baby.
I'm so glad that you gave us a really good one there because next week we're going to have a fancy new intro for this. We just got the big voice guy, old Jim Cutler, to do some stuff for us. And in my head, the fancy intro includes Anthony going, read those comments, and he just gave me the material I needed to work with. He didn't even know that. You didn't know that, Anthony. Tell the people you didn't know that.
I did not at all.
But next week, you bet your bottom dollar you're going to see it. It's a running bit on the show, but also like an actual thing. I'm trying to learn French. My wife and I are going to Paris next year for the Olympics, so I'm trying to learn French. It's incredibly difficult. I'm very bad at it.
tips for someone learning French? You did the reverse. For people that don't know, you started as a French speaker, and I was reading on Wikipedia, so I don't know if it's true, but also Haitian Creole, first 2 languages, and then had to learn English, which I know is very, very difficult to learn when it's not your native language. French, English, they don't seem compatible. What's your tip for me as I try to learn French?
I would say watch movies in French with English subtitles. That's what I did. I watched a lot of movies in French, but I had the English. No, I watched a lot of movies in English with the French subtitles. So like movies, music, it's kind of something that's like easy, like on the brain. It's not too much information, but you can still enjoy it, and you can see the conversation, because that's the hardest part. Learning like a little word, like to say like, hey, my name is this or whatever, that's easy. But holding a conversation, that's the hardest part.
Yeah, right now I'm really just trying to master, like, I'm American, do you speak English? Because I think in Paris I can get away with that.
Yeah, so je suis américain.
Yeah.
Et je ne parle pas en français.
See, even the way you said that is not the way Duolingo says to say that. So I'll just have to come back to my new French tutor, Benjamin Sejus. BSJ, I appreciate it. Thank you, man.
Sure.
It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Hope that you are having a great Tuesday, a victory Tuesday here on the show. Still to come, our roster projection. You know you do not want to miss that. We updated after each and every Commanders game through the preseason. All 3 of them. Hard to believe there's only 3 of them now. I'm so old, we grew up with 4. All right, clearly we need an expert to join the show. Good thing it's time for Not My Beat.
Today's top story from the perspective of someone who's there.
You are looking live.
This just in.
Not My Beat.
Our pleasure to welcome in Matthew Paris of the Washington Times, of course, their Commanders beat reporter, and so much more. Matthew, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
What time did you get home last night?
Around 1:15, almost 1:30.
That's not bad after Monday Night Football.
No. Preseason does wonders. You file an instant story, you throw in a little quotes, and you get the hell out of there.
Now, I did see it was you who tweeted, like, I hate the adrenaline of it, though. What time did you actually get to sleep?
I think 2:30, maybe. Another hour I was up.
Yeah, an hour after getting home is not bad, man.
Not bad. It was not as normally I'm up till 3:30.
Yeah, those night games are
it's not
nasty.
as bad.
Those night games are nasty. That is one thing from the beat that I absolutely do not miss. It's not my beat anymore. It is still yours, which means I get to ask you questions like this. How's Terry McLaurin's toe?
Yeah, they received some good news, and that just a sprain, but nothing more serious. No major damage occurred, and so they're optimistic he's going to be ready for Week 1. I think it helps that they have now however many days breaks it is till the regular season. They have a few weeks here. He wasn't going to play the third game anyway, so they have a little bit of time to rest it.
So I hate to put you in this spot, but they say they're optimistic. Do you believe them? Because they were optimistic about Logan Thomas's calf and every other injury that's taken a long time. Or is this just have we stacked enough injuries at this point with Ron at this time of year to go, yes, there was the Curtis Samuel thing, which really burned all of us that one time. But largely, if they're telling us one thing this time of year and then being careful, we can believe them.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I mean, with Logan Thomas especially, he still hasn't practiced. But I do think there is something here and that he's going to be okay. Famous last words, but I choose to believe them for now with this because, it looked bad, but it also wasn't that, I think he's fine, but who knows?
Right. There's no real way. None of us are doctors, and even if we were, we haven't seen his MRIs or anything. We know the X-rays are negative, but that just means his toe's not broken. He's got the turf toe. It's a sprain. Toe injuries suck. Okay, as for the football last night, Sam Howell, numbers are great. From my eye, looked really good, really efficient. What did you see, and then what did the locker room have to say about QB1 tonight?
Yeah, I think a few things stood out. One is just how much he spread the ball around. I think he targeted 7 different guys, and it wasn't just, Jahan Dotson was, had the most volume, but he really spread it around, and just his ability to overcome mistakes and, he took those sacks and he fired back with some great throws and led that 2-minute drive before the end of the half. So I thought it was a really impressive night for him. I thought the reaction to him nationally was really interesting. People kind of starting to notice Sam Howell now. And then, the locker room had nothing but great things to say.
So I'm glad you brought up the national thing. And obviously, if you're at the game, you're not listening to Joe and Troy on the broadcast. I was sitting on my couch, so I was. And, those guys, national guys tend to like everybody. They're not going to be this guy actually hated him coming out, really think he's going to be terrible. I don't know what this coach is doing. That's just not how that works. But Aikman, was more specific in his praise. He's like, I kind of like him. I see why with the arm talent. I see with this. You see the mobility. That's a part of his game. And he seemed to have a bit of a file on him. And I just wonder at what point, Matt, our eye test has told us since last year in the Dallas game that there's something to this kid. There's a moxie, there's a confidence, there's the arm strength, there's the mobility, there's all this stuff. But he still hasn't, played a full, regular season challenge yet. And Week 1 in Arizona is barely going to count. Dallas, there was in a weird spot at the end of last year. Arizona's not very good. But all the data we have so far is encouraging. Do you feel, long wind up to say, do you feel any differently now about Howell than, say, when some fans were clamoring for him last November, than how you felt this spring, than how you felt at the start of training camp?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Even after the Dallas game, I thought, the throw to McLaurin was really impressive, the kind of the poise he had, but you still look at the final stat line and you kind of shrug, and You say, okay, maybe it's the end of the season. Who knows about this? And then early in camp, he went through it. It was pretty rough in moments, and I really kind of do think he's turned a corner here the last few weeks. The preseason games have been really impressive, and you can say it's preseason, but the way he's able to respond after negative plays, I just think is such a big thing. I know I just brought that up a few seconds ago, but I think that's kind of his biggest separator between the quarterbacks they had last year and this year.
I wasn't even going to bring that comparison up, but yeah, let's just say there's a little bit of a difference. Jahan Dotson is someone else we should talk about. As Matt Paris is with us here on the Hoffman Show. 7 targets last night. You mentioned one of 7 guys that Howell hit, but he's the main guy. If I tell you he's going to have 90 catches, 1,000 yards, you going over, under those numbers?
It's a good line that you said, because I'd go probably right around there. I would maybe go slightly under. It just depends. I also depends if Terry McLaurin plays a full season. But if McLaurin is healthy all the way through, I would expect him still to be the number 1 guy. But if Jahan Dotson, I would say Jahan Dotson leads in touchdowns and Terry McLaurin leads in yards. Is that a fair compromise?
No, that's totally fair, and I've gone one further. I am out on the record as saying that I think Dotson leads the team in receptions. Yardage, I think McLaurin can still get him because he's so damn explosive that he'll have a couple of 70-yarders on the year. And Jahan might. Jahan is also as explosive, but, that's Terry's thing. But I think Jahan's going to get, 6 to 10 catches just about every week. He's that good, man.
Yeah, I mean, his hands, even last year, becoming for a guy his size to be a red zone threat and a viable one is just that's Jordan Reed level stuff, and there's a 5-inch difference between them. It's really impressive.
Yeah, you be careful making Jordan Reed comparisons around me. I was king of the Jordan Reed bandwagon. If you could just still mad at whatever Casey, that safety from Atlanta that ended his career basically. That guy sucks. I don't like him. He might be a nice fella. I don't know. I'm still very mad. Anyway, the defense last night, the performance in a vacuum was not good. What's the context that you want to put on that?
I mean, the context is that 8 dudes sat, so
good context, Matt. Crushed it.
You could do it there, but I actually, if there was a disappointment from last night, which of these defensive ends are going to separate themselves? I even thought a guy like Andre Jones, who was having a phenomenal few practices, had a little bit of a quieter night. It didn't really seem like the pass rush was kind of in sync, as Rivera always talks about. I asked him at that after the game if he had seen that, and he said that wasn't really there. So, you're doing roster battles later in the show. I'm going to ask you, how many edge rushers do you have on this team? Because that's my biggest question right now. Are they going to keep all 6 or whatever it is? That's a hard spot to pick.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't know yet. We do the exercise live, and for a couple of reasons. One of them being, if we had the roster ahead of time, that becomes a very short segment. And the way radio works is the time, despite sometimes my wishes, does not fill itself. But it is one of those questions, right? Where I think I will tell you this. I think Jones is on the roster, and I think his special teams value gets him there. But I think KJ Henry had an equally good night last night. Neither of them were phenomenal, but for instance, there was a play that, the tackle for loss in the red zone that Jones has. And on the broadcast, Buck and Aikman were going crazy about him and oh, they really love this kid. And I saw Grant tweeting oh, well, there goes his chance to sneak through to the practice squad when Monday Night Football is hyping him up. But I'm the other guy that's a half tackle, I think, for Jones in the stat book. And the other half was KJ Henry coming from the other side. And Henry was blocked. Jones was not on the play. It's a great play. But KJ Henry had a good night last night. So I don't know, man. I think it's really tough. I think you're definitely keeping, obviously, Chase. You're definitely keeping Montez. You're definitely keeping James Smith-Williams. I think you're definitely keeping Tuhill. You're definitely keeping Obata. So do you wind up going with 7 edge guys? And that gets to something else that I think is interesting, which is they've played Chase at a little bit of 3 technique and some one-on-ones and things, and then he got hurt. James has been playing there. FA's played there in the past. I actually think the depth issues is who's John Allen's backup at specifically the 3 technique, when Ridgeway and Big Phil are kind of more on that 1 technique, more of Daron Payne type of mold, you know?
Right. Yeah. No. Absolutely. I mean, you do see Smith Williams kick inside, but yeah, like, are they going to keep? How many backups are they going to keep for Daron Payne? Is it just going to be Darian Mathis? I mean, John Ridgeway was a really nice find last year after Mathis went down, and it feels like, he's having an okay camp. Not really. He hasn't popped that much, but he also came into camp a little bit behind the 8 ball because he was sidelined, I think, with an injury this offseason. So, I think a lot of fans maybe would be surprised if John Ridgeway got cut, and I'm not saying that he's going to be, but those are the numbers games that you have to kind of sort out this time of year of how many guys you want to keep it, and one spot affects another one,
No, 100%. And you wind up doing the special teams game where the 4th tight end is actually competing with the 7th wide receiver, et cetera, on all of that. Matt Paris with us for another minute or two here on the Hoffman Show. All right, I'll wrap up with this thought exercise. Who that played last night is of the main guys? Like, obviously, everyone who played in the second half last night is going to play next week. But of the main guys, the Bartons and the Davises and the Forbes, even a guy like Quan Martin, like, how high on the roster do we go where the line is of guys that are playing versus not next week?
Yeah, I would imagine Quan Martin still gets some extended playing time, especially because I don't think his role is going to be that big once the season begins. You bring up a really interesting point about Barton and Davis. I mean, those guys played last night because Rivera wanted to see them gel a little bit more. They really weren't in sync the first preseason game. I think there's still probably progress to be made after, the way the Ravens drove down the field this time around. But I don't know. I mean, they technically are starters, and if they sit every starters, then they might not play. But I think I wouldn't be surprised if those guys played again, but I guess we'll have to see.
Yeah, I lied. I have one more. This is very, very important to me personally. I have joked that I have been on long snapper duty with these Cameron Cheeseman bag snaps. How the hell did y'all forget to ask Rivera about that last night? Come on, Paris.
Yeah, it is something. I mean, the fact that it wasn't I wasn't joking in the press box that Joey Sly was going to miss the kick because of Joey Sly. I do think I do think it's an issue. It's really weird. Trustway is maybe the world's best holder. I mean, to save some of those balls, I guess I understand the explanation of why he wants to change his technique. But
what is the explanation? Because I have been waiting to hear this. Is it a velocity thing?
Yeah, he wanted to change the direction of it, so it was a little, it came out faster and was easier to pin down or something like that. I'd have to pull up the transcript, but Truss explained it in full detail. It was very complicated, special teams jargon, but that was the main thing. I think it had to do with the velocity, but it comes out much faster now, which it seems like it's kind of going all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. It's one of those things that's crazy because Nick Sundberg was perfectly good at the job. They let him go. They trade up for the kid, and now, I thought he was doing fine, and now they're messing with stuff. He's not doing fine anymore. It's not great, Bob. Not great. But I guess we'll ask Rivera. Or either you'll ask Rivera about it tomorrow, or we'll know because there'll be a bunch of long snappers in Commanders t-shirts getting ready to warm up as you guys come off the field. So I guess he's speaking before practice, so we'll know a little bit before 1 o'clock tomorrow. All right, Paris, thank you, sir. Much appreciate your time as always. Unfortunately, I will not see you at practice later this week because they decided to put it in the afternoons, I think to spite me personally and to make you guys bake in the sun. How pumped are you for a 1 p.m. practice?
You know what? I will take that over my, getting up at 7:30 to drive out there. I like afternoon practices. It's fine.
Oh, okay. Well, put on your sunscreen and have fun with that. I'll be sitting in a nice, cool radio studio, not being there. All right. Thanks, buddy. I'll talk to you. See you. Bye.
All right. Wait. That's it.
Matthew Paris, everybody. Read his work, WashingtonTimes.com/sports. Covering the Commanders, of course, also covers everything else DC sports for them as well. All right, when we get back here on the Hoffman Show, let's see, we got a little bit of an unplanned segment. We can go really whatever direction anybody wants. So let's do this. We haven't had a chance to do this today. Let's open up the Ace Law listener line. 301-230-0980. Your takeaways from the game. That is a solid hour and a half of mine, Logan Paulsen's, Matthew Paris's. Let's get yours. 301-230-0980. Talking ball with you, taking your calls next here on The Hoffman Show. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube too at the Team 980. Make sure you're subscribed if you are not, especially if you're watching right now. If some of y'all are subscribed or watching right now, you haven't hit that subscribe button. Click the button. Do it right now. I see you. Do it. All right, that was awkward and uncomfortable for everybody. Hopefully people felt the proper amount of shame and they hit the button and we can continue on with our lives. Let's go to the phones. 301-230-0980. The Ace Law listener line. If you get in a wreck, Ace Law helps you get a check. Call 8888 Ace Law. Let's start off with Maurice. Maurice, thanks for calling. You're on the Hoffman Show.
How you doing, Hoffman? This is Maurice Grease from Southeast. I just want to say that, you know, I enjoyed the game, and I'm glad we stopped that streak. I really was impressed for the most part with the starting quarterback. You know, he showed a lot of poise in the pocket, and you know, he was very calm, just like I heard earlier. But one thing that really disappointed me was the backup quarterback play from the guy. Can't think his name right now.
Brissett.
Yeah, he definitely disappointed me. And I think, and lastly, I really think that we need to take a real good look at the quarterback from Georgia, the young guy. I think I think from his pedigree and his winning attitude, and I think he showed good poise to me, and I think we need to take a good look at him for being our backup quarterback, because I think this guy has a lot of potential. Thank you for taking my call. God bless one and all is my prayer. Goodbye.
All right. Thanks, Maurice. Maurice is very kind, so I'm going to be very kind while I do this. This is why I hate preseason. Jacoby Brissett has 48 career NFL starts. Jake Fromm has never played against a starter ever in his life. I don't think he's ever gotten an appearance in a regular season game. We can double check that, Anthony, if you want to double check. Jake Fromm, 0 career snaps, and if he has career snaps, it's got to be like kneel downs or handoffs against backups. And we're gonna go off one bad quarter of Jacoby Brissett, and this is not me picking on Maurice, because this was a sentiment on lots of Commanders Twitter last night. We're going to take one quarter of Jacoby Brissett, who has 48 career NFL starts and was a top 10 quarterback in terms of multiple statistics, including QB rating, for much of last year with the Browns. And you would like to replace him with a guy who's got less career snaps, if he's even got one, than Brissett has starts, based off of one quarter of preseason football. The correct answer to that question should be no. Simple enough. Capiche? Capiche. Anthony, have you looked up Jake Fromm's career starts?
I have indeed, Craig.
How many snaps has he ever played? 0 starts, right?
No, he has 2 starts.
Jake Fromm has 2 NFL starts?
For the New York Giants in 2021, baby.
You've got to be kidding me. How'd those go?
He's 0-2 with a 45% completion percentage. 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions. 70 yards a game.
70 yards a game?
Oh, it is 70 yards a game.
Jake Fromm, I have to see this for myself.
He has
Holy
210
crap.
total yards, Craig. 27 for 60.
He did play in 3 games for the Giants in 2020. His career QBR is 15.4.
Yes, sir.
Oh, his career. No, all respect to Jake Fromm, who's had a really solid camp for what he is, which is a backup's backup. 38.9 career rating. He's 27 of 60.
That was 2 years ago, though.
Good point.
But still, the numbers are there, Greg.
He's thrown 60 career passes and 3 career interceptions. Meanwhile, Jacoby Brissett has been in the league since 2016. He's got an 18-30 record as a starter. So he's won 18 games. Some of those were the 2017 season is the year Luck retires and things go haywire, if I'm remembering correctly. Or maybe that was 2019.
It was 2018, because that was my the year I graduated.
Well, 2018 he played in 4 games. Look, it must have been, because 2019 would have been the year that Luck retired in the preseason.
Yeah.
Because he started that year, right?
I think he played in the preseason and then quit. Right before the season started.
Yeah. Well, anyway, he had 2 full years as a starter in Indy. The first one, he was 4-11. And again, he was supposed to be the backup both times. He was 7-8 in the next one. Last year, he's only 4-7, but he was actually really good. He's 12 touchdowns to 6 picks. I mean, even in that 7-8 season, he's 18 touchdowns to 6 picks, 13-7. He's got a positive touchdown to interception career ratio in the NFL against actual players in meaningful games. On a lot of bad teams, and people saw one quarter. He only played in the third quarter last night. One quarter, which included, by the way, a fumble by his running back in Chris Rodriguez. Nothing to do with Jacoby Brissett. And a bizarro interception where it looks like he throws it right to where John Bates should be, and Bates just kept running, and people want to go with Jake Fromm as QB2. You know what I think of that, Anthony?
I don't think you like it.
Not good. I think we got more room for calls next. And then 5:45, we'll get into our position battles, how they do last night. Our pick six, we picked 6 guys who had the most to prove yesterday. How'd they do? That's our pick 6. Then everyone's been waiting for it all. Show the roster projection at 6:15. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. More of your calls next on that free Odyssey app.
This is DC's home for Maryland Terrapins basketball.
An update on the key position battles in 13 minutes. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. I am Greg Hoffman, super producer Anthony Haney alongside as we start the back half of this Tuesday extravaganza. Hard to believe just a week ago, that was the first day of joint practices. It's crazy how time flies. Really, my question, Anthony, is how are we going to survive these next couple of weeks? Because we can get ourselves excited about the 53-man cut down in this game, and it's exciting for the young guys who's going to make the practice squad, all that kind of stuff. Exciting on a human level for them on Saturday. But bro, from there, we got 2 whole weeks, 2 weekends without pro football. Like this is the thing with training camp. It's like we get to it and it's like we're here, we in it, we made it through the summer. No, you didn't. You got to make it to week 1. And really, like the week leading into week 1, you're getting ready for Arizona. You don't know anything about Arizona. They got a bunch of new guys. Even if it was a team that had some continuity, You wouldn't know anything about them. They're all new. What are we going to do? There's no game to review from the previous week. We're just sitting there fiending for it.
There's no ownership news.
No, I mean, that's at this point, we're on the right side of that.
I mean, I'm saying, because through the summer, that got us through the summer.
There's a lot to talk about there. Not just get us through. There was legitimately things to talk about.
Yeah.
I just don't know what we're going to.
I have an idea.
Okay.
The Nationals.
Yo, they're trying.
And they start a series against the Yankees today. Yankees have lost 8 straight. Can the Nationals make it 9?
Yeah, no, that's intriguing. By the way, we will take some more of your calls in a moment if y'all want to get them in on the Commanders-Ravens game. 301-230-0980. Anything you want to talk about. I'm game. Run your ideas by me. We'll chop it up. Just some fellas and ladies talking ball. 301-230-0980. I was texting with our guy Lou up in New York, who's our regional digital guy. And I was texting him earlier in the week because I was like, hey, we just did this thing. We want to let them know so they can write it up and get it on our website and yada, yada, yada. That's how it doesn't magically appear there. There's Lou to put it there and his team. And we somehow got in a conversation about digital cable. I think he was waiting on his cable guy or something like that. And we were talking about I've got this service, that service. And it led into whether or not we could watch baseball and led into us talking a little bit of baseball. And I was like, the Nationals are kind of interesting right now. This is the first time since I got Fubo TV and haven't been able to watch the Nationals. And I'm like, I kind of wish I could watch the Nationals right now. In fact, I might have to change up my streaming service or get old school cable or something. If any of the cable companies are listening and want to sponsor the show, we're happy to be brought to you by whoever can bring us Masson. But the point is, the Nationals are legitimately interesting for the first time in a couple of years, and they just obviously gave Davey the extension. We might try to grab Chelsea or Jesse or someone to come talk about it tomorrow on the show. But Lou's a Yankees fan, and he's like, yeah, we are a mess. And I was like, bad on purpose is better than bad on accident. The Yankees are big-time bad on accident. Also, it is kind of hilarious watching all the New York media freak out. It's one of my favorite things when they overreact. They think they're entitled to something. If they're a game, if they're not exactly where they're supposed to be, or they think they're supposed to be, it's tear it all down, fire everyone, everyone sucks. They're the most overreactive, in need of instant gratification, impatient. And I get it. If you're a Yankees fan and you're looking at their ownership group and the amount of money they spent, but it is chef's kiss, beautiful. Anytime in New York sports. And I say this as someone who's originally from New York. My family is all up there. I grew up in South Carolina, but all my cousins and everybody, New York sports fans, trolling them when their teams suck, one of my favorite pastimes. Just, it's so good. It's so good.
Would you rather troll a New York fan or a Boston fan?
I think they're different kinds of obnoxious, right? And I'm not saying they're not both great fans because when the Garden is popping in New York for a Knicks game or when Yankee Stadium's going in October, there aren't many better stadiums in sports. There are not many better pro atmospheres. You talk about the college atmospheres at an Alabama, at a Texas A&M when it's going Oregon, some of the best college atmospheres. They're just as good in New York on the pro level. There is nothing like the Garden when it's going. Yankee Stadium is really I've been to plenty of games there, and it's special. I'm not saying it's not deserving. Same thing for Boston. When the Garden gets going in Boston, or when Fenway gets going, it's crazy. It's awesome. So I'm not saying that it's totally invalid from the diehardness. And that it's all bad. But I think New York is more fun to poke at, especially recently, because Boston teams have actually been good. What am I going to, if I'm a DC sports fan and I'm a Wizards fan, what the hell am I going to say to a Celtics fan, right? If I'm a Commanders fan, what am I saying to a Patriots fan? Oh, hey, so sorry, Tommy's gone. Cool, we had him for 20 years. While we had Brady, Do you even know how many quarterbacks you have? Can you count that high? Can anyone count that high? Could Einstein have counted that high? Like, what are you going to say?
Nothing.
The only thing, we got more quarterbacks here than they've got Super Bowl trophies. Barely. And we've had a lot of quarterbacks.
Yeah.
So, like New York, though, like trolling a Jets fan, think they're going to be good every year. No. Giants fans, yeah, they got those couple of Super Bowls, but like, Mets fans, super fun. Super fun. Yankees are a little different story. Then you got to go to the oh cool you paid for it bit. But that's baseball. We all wish our owners spent that much money. And then the Mets got one who did, and they still suck. So, same old Mets, baby. How did we get here? What am I saying right now?
It's a great question.
I think this is your fault. I think you were like, we could talk about the Nationals. And so suddenly I'm just making fun of New York sports fans.
Yep. I brought us down this rabbit hole.
Yep.
And you follow right behind.
I did. I just blindly like, la-di-da-di-da. What's down around the corner? What did you want to Anthony, what did you take out of the Commanders-Ravens game last night?
We'll
get to the position battles in a couple minutes.
I will tell you, I took a lot out of the game yesterday, but
we just save it all for tomorrow. Do Anthony's takeaways tomorrow. I'll just kick my feet up and shout a thing or two every once in a while. What's your number one thing?
My number one thing, the amount of passing plays that the Commanders had yesterday in the first half under Sam Howell. I think he dropped back like, of the 39 plays, I want to say 30, he dropped back 30 times. And I'm just excited to see that just because, and I was doing some research on this, I was looking back at the last time we had some success in our passing game. And it took me all the way back to 2017. That was the last time Kirk Cousins was here. He threw for 4,200 yards. 2016, he threw for almost 5,000 yards. And I'm thinking, Craig, I don't want to jinx this, but this could be the first time in 6 years where we have a passing game that is to be desired. So that's more so what I took out of it. Us getting the ball down the field, allowing Sam to, get some reps in because we already know what Brian Robinson can do. We know what Antonio Gibson can do when we just hand the ball off. But being able to get Sam Howell some legitimate reps against the twos, yes. Against the threes, okay, it is what it is. But it's the fact that he was making that, the right reads, getting through his progressions, being mobile in the pocket, and executing.
There's a lot to chew on there. We could probably do a whole show on it. No, it's great. It's a really good, astute point. I don't know that I want to make too much of the play calling in the regular season, or in the preseason. Like they definitely wanted to get Sam work. That's part of it. But I do think that Ron came out of last season being like, hire me, Greg Roman. I want to run the ball so much. And he's like, oh, no, Bieniemy's available? Like, let's do that. And then Bieniemy came in and was like, look, I love running the football. I was a running back. I was a running back's coach. But I've seen the light, and the league has changed. If you want to be effective, here's how you got to do it. And I think you see it last night. Like, I don't want to get too deep in here. And, again, there's too much to chew on, and we don't have the amount of time. And, I don't want to get out of my depth on the X's and O's of it all. But on first down, you get much simpler coverage structures because the players playing those coverage structures on a 1st and 10 are worried about the run. And so on third down, the reason you see all these exotic, crazy blitzes is they leave a hole somewhere that if you ran through it, you would score a touchdown. The running back would hit his head on the goalpost. The problem with calling a run there is it's so skewed the wrong way risk-reward that the chances that you hit the right hole against this wacky coverage are very, very slim, or this wacky blitz is very, very slim. And so you need to get, 12 yards on a 3rd and 12 or 8 yards on a 3rd and 8. You're better off just trying to pick up the blitz and getting it through the air. Like everybody understands hey, we're better off throwing it part, but that's the reason you see more exotic blitzes on third down where the defense knows it's pass. We don't have to worry about run fits. So if we put players in position that they can't get to their gap, it doesn't matter. On first down, everyone's got to look out for their gap, And thus, the players tend to line up a lot more like what you see on when you hit cover 3 in Madden, right? They've got to be in the right spot in case it's a run play. And that makes life so much easier for a quarterback on this quick game stuff because players are where you think they're going to be. They drop to the spots that you think they're going to drop to, and thus you know where the hole is in the zone, or you get man-to-man, and you know which matchup you want to go to because it's not as disguised. It's, maybe you get a basic disguise. They start in a 2-high look. They roll to a single high, but you see that pretty quickly post-snap, and you know what the coverage is. And I think what you saw last night is, yes, occasionally they'll run it on first down. You don't want to be 100% of anything. You want to be balanced. You want to be unpredictable. But there's a huge benefit to throwing on first down, and the enemy showed that with some of the quick game stuff last night, where you pick up a quick 6 yards, now you're 2nd and 4, and your whole playbook's open. If you want to run it, you can. If you want to take a play-action shot, you can. If you want to just hit quick game again and get a first down and repeat the process, you can. And I think that's where the play calling of Bieniemy and, going to this more modern NFL style of thinking versus this old school, we got to run it on first down. Okay, it's 2nd and 7. Now, what do we do? It's well, you better pick up a good chunk. We run it again. Now it's 3rd and 3, and you're on third down a lot. The best way to convert third downs is to never have third downs. Just get the first downs quicker. And I think that you already saw a glimpse of that last night to your passing point, and it's a good way, by the way, to stack up a nice bit of passing yardage. So Howell, 3,500, 4,000 yards, it's that would 4,000 be a lot, but it's not outrageously out of the equation. You see how easy he picks up 188 last night, and it doesn't feel like the game is way out of balance or way off kilter. All right, we get back. We highlighted 3 position battles going into last night's game. How do they look after the game? I'll tell you here on the Team 980. Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube as well, youtube.com/@theteam980 if you would like to watch the show. So yesterday at this time, we gave you 3 position battles to watch for last night's game. It would only seem right, Anthony, that we then go back and say, hey, how'd those fellas do last night? So let's start with the one that had, I think, the most headlines, the sexiest headlines going into the game, because pass rush juice, it gets people going. You got Andre Jones Jr. and KJ Henry. And Andre Jones Jr. made a couple plays last night, was in pursuit a couple of times and has that nice tackle in the backfield. And Joe Buck and Troy Aikman are like, hey, they really like this kid. He's been far more developed than they anticipated. They were like, oh, he's going to be a raw potential guy drafted in the 7th round. Turns out he's more than that. He's ready to play right now on some level. And that's all accurate. Andre Jones Jr. had a solid night. No sacks. No, I mean, he did have, I guess, the pressure on the Quantum Martin interception, right? That was him, if I'm remembering correctly?
Nah, that was...
Or was that Benning? Potoye.
Yep.
So, yeah, he had... No, that's right. Benning had that one. But he had a couple of...
He flushed Josh out.
Yeah, and he showed the speed. Because there was like one time where he got flushed the other way and someone tried to chase him down and it did not particularly go well for whatever defensive end. Or I think it actually wound up being one of the defensive tackles trying to chase him. And then you see the difference when they flush him out to Jones's side, and Jones is like, I will escort you to the sideline nicely at or behind the line of scrimmage. Because the speed is incredible, and it's also going to help him on special teams and all that kind of stuff. But the big play that got everyone's attention, in fact, I think we have the play-by-play of it, and we have Joe Buck and Troy Aikman talking about it on the broadcast on Monday Night Football last night. This is actually what it sounded like in case you were at the game and missed it.
Yeah, it's just I'm
Not that. That's the wrong bite. I hate this computer sometimes. All right, here we go.
First and goal, and swallowed up in the backfield is Owen Wright. And that play made by Andre Jones, and this kid has really shown something. A rookie, 7th-round pick. They thought he was going to be a project, and he's come in a lot more polished and ready to go than they even expected. He has opened some eyes.
Yes, he has, and it helps when you don't get blocked,
yes.
But he really has opened a lot of eyes, and he's just a raw guy. He played in a 2-point stance in college, so something as simple as just putting your hand in the ground is new for him.
So ESPN, ABC, Monday Night Football, the credit obviously on the audio. Here's the thing, though. On that very play, not taking anything away from Andre Jones, great play. But what did Troy say? Oh, it helps when you're not blocked. Well, when you're the unblocked player, it means you have a long way to go, and they've put you in a bind. He made the right decision. He made the play. But there was another player in the backfield on that play who fought through a block. And, Anthony, do you know who that player was?
His name was KJ Henry, baby.
That is correct. I think KJ Henry also found himself in the backfield quite a bit last night, had a couple of flushes. He had one that probably should have been a sack, and that's not going to, like, it's a positive pass rush with a negative finish, is how they'll grade that out. But KJ Henry, I thought, was fine last night. Like, I don't think, like, if their performances are last night are indicative of the entire camp, I think KJ Henry makes the team based off draft stock. Now, I think we know that hasn't been the case, and we know that the special teams value that Jones brings and the fact that the secret's out makes it harder to get him to practice squad. So that's going to be an interesting decision for us here in a few minutes when we do the roster projection. But I think last night, KJ Henry showed he's right there. Dax Milne, Kaz Allen. Dax, I think, had one catch on the night. Kaz Allen had a couple late. Kaz had the better receiving night, also had the better return night, although Milne, in terms of yardage, right? Milne, though, on that first one does a good job of, waving the fair catch, drawing the punt coverage up and letting the ball go over his head into the end zone. Good decision-making, good execution. Meanwhile, there's a punt later where Kaz Allen doesn't get to it in time. Like, he's calling the hey, stay away, but he's not close enough to it. He doesn't do a good job of communicating it, and the Commanders get lucky that one of the 3 players that's in the kind of 5-yard bubble around the ball doesn't get hit on a bounce. So, like, that's something that a special teams coach will pick up, that a broadcast will probably ignore, and that most people will not ever think of until there's a fumble in the game because a punt returner does a bad job of clearing the area and it hits a guy and you're like, well, I didn't know. Well, did the punt returner say fire, 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 or whatever your code word is? No. Okay, well, that's on the punt returner. So little details. Obviously, a 20-yard return on a punt is very nice, and Kaz had one of those. And I think he had a better night as a receiver. I'd say slight bump to Allen in the Allen-Milne matchup last night, but no major movement there either. But that's one that's going to play out big time, I think, against Cincinnati. And then I think the last one, Sadiq versus Chris Paul, I think you have to it's Sadiq won the night. Why? Because he played all the 1 reps. Chris Paul was fine. Sadiq was fine. I think they both were good, I would even say. You see some of their strengths. You see Sadiq really clean up a couple. He got a nice little nasty streak to him at times. You see Chris Paul's play strength where he's not always in exactly the right position, but he's so damn strong it doesn't matter. You see some of those things. But when one guy continues to get all the 1 reps, whenever he's out there, there's no splitting reps happening. I think we called that fight way too early. That's on me. Mark this. Next year, don't do that. No calling position camp battles for the underdog a week into training camp, no matter how well they're playing. This was not a Wally Pipp situation. Sadiq Charles, as long as he can stay healthy, I think is going to be starting left guard for this team. I do wonder if either of them play next week. But I don't think it's a battle. So if it's not a position battle, then Sadiq's the starter. He rests, and off you go, and you go into week 1 with him at left guard. And, ultimately that's probably the best for the team because he's got higher upside, at least for right now, with his movement skill and some of the things they want to do with this offense. So them's the position battles. Any other thoughts on those, Anthony? Did we miss anything?
No, I think
any disagreements?
Nah, we're in agreement.
Okay, excellent. I just like to check.
Yeah.
Like to have you be more than a pretty face in the other screen. Very important. But you're doing a great job with that too. Look at them. Look at them pearly whites. Made me want to brush my teeth before I come in, like right before. Add a little whitening to it. Anyway, the point is, when we get back, pick 6 at 6. We picked 6 guys last night outside of those 6 we just named in the position battles. 6 guys that had to have a big night for a variety of reasons. We will tell you how their nights went. Next is the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app. How nervous were you to interview Josh Harris?
Dude, that's a really funny story. Like, he's sitting in the front row. And I was like, man, should we try to get him? And so I just went up and I was like, hey, man, I know the security guard that was with him. Like, it's good to know security guards. And he was like, yeah, man. Like, hey, Josh, this is Logan Paulsen. He works for the team. He was like, hey, Josh, really nice to meet you. Would you mind doing like a 2-question interview at halftime? And then he goes, just keep it general, and yeah, no problem. He was so kind and generous with his time, and like, it was great.
And I thought it was so great that he was just like, no, I'm going to sit right there. I'm going to get kind of a feel of the sidelines. But especially when it's raining, like, I thought it was great that he was on the sideline.
Again, as a former player, it felt really cool in the rain to see him hanging out, him and his boy. I got a ton of respect for that. And, he was great in the interview, really accommodating. So thank you to Mr. Josh Harris. But yeah, man, I was a little nervous.
as someone who was on the Washington beat in 2019 when Josh Johnson came in and finished that season, I cannot believe Josh Johnson is still in the league playing for yet another team. I think he's played for all of them. That'd actually be fun. Can he try to play for every single team? He's going to need a couple midseason trades. But
he's close. He's
closer than he should be.
Because how old is he? How old is Josh Johnson?
I don't know. Here, we're going to look this up. This is always my favorite radio, but we're going to look this up because
he's
the
37.
world deserves to know.
He's
37.
That's older than I thought.
And that's the thing. He was like in his 30s when he showed up and Jay Gruden was like, I don't know, we're going to let Josh run around in 2019. And he's played for literally 14 NFL teams.
Wow. Even if he gets half, even if we can get just 2 more in his career,
that'd be great.
Get half, to say that he played for half the league, because at that point, you got to think of the man cave, right? You have your name on a game-worn jersey for 16 different teams.
Well, and that doesn't count the other leagues he's played in. Like, I don't know what league the Sacramento Mountain Lions are in. Apparently an American football, it's the American football team based in Sacramento, United Football League. But he played for him in 2012. He also played for the Los Angeles Wildcats. Who can forget of the original XFL 2.0? If the current one's 3.0 and the one with He Hate Me back in the day was 1.0. He played the San Diego Fleet in the Alliance. Remember the Alliance?
Oh, yeah. I forgot he was in that league.
So he's played for like 17 teams, 14 NFL teams, and counting. Clearly, if there's one of those two guys gets midseason traded, it's going to be Josh Johnson, because that's what happens to Josh Johnson.
This is a work of art. This whole... He's played for the Niners 4 times. 2012, 2014, 2020, and then 2022. He's played for the Niners.
I think on your show, I was going to do this to you, but I decided that we didn't really have the time to do it properly. You on your show, just randomly, you should just quiz your co-host and be like, did Josh Johnson play for this team?
Oh, that's actually a great bit. That's a great bit. If we start that bit, I will give you full credit for it, but this is a great bit.
Excellent. That's all I need. All right. If you need me to come guest host. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Streaming live on YouTube. YouTube.com/@theteam980. So we've been doing Pick 6 all training camp long. Pick the 6 biggest storylines of the day at camp. We're going to keep the segment into the regular season as well. Just the 6 biggest storylines of the day. It won't be every day, but multiple times a week at 6 o'clock. Which means, fancy new introduction!
The 6 biggest Commander storylines.
It is caught!
Delivered at 6 o'clock sharp. It's the Pick 6 at 6.
I'm going to be their biggest and harshest critic, but I'm also their #1 fan.
All right, so here's how we handled this yesterday, which is important to understand for how we're going to do this today. We picked 6 players with the most to prove. We excluded from this list Andre Jones Jr., KJ Henry, Dax Milne, Kaz Allen, Sadiq Charles, and Chris Paul, because we talked about them in their individual position battles or their dual position battles. You get what I'm saying? We picked 6 other guys, so let's see how they did in last night's game. Player number 1, Quan Martin. Mixed bag, to say the least. He continues to compete, and he continues to grow, and he continues to learn, and he continues to get better, and he continues to suffer from not getting to play with Cam Curl. I do think that it's important to remember how much better the communication is on the back end of this defense when Cam Curl is out there. It happened last year, and this year, when Cam hasn't been out there, it hasn't been as good in practice and everything. And Quan is a guy who's been stretched very, very thin intellectually, not because he's not smart, but because they have put so much on his plate. Multiple safety positions. And it's like one thing for a guy like Jeremy Reeves to do it, who's been in the league for 6, 7, 8 years. Like, Quan Martin is trying to learn how to play NFL football, and he's trying to learn how to play NFL football at least 3, if not 4 different positions. So it's really, really tough on him. This is just a tough ask. So with that said, he just keeps going out there, keeps sticking to it. And eventually is able to make a play. Has a 59-yard return after the interception on a play where he and Rashad Wildgoose do not communicate very well. A little bit of a bump. You wind up in trail technique, but you don't want to trail by that much. But he shows you why he's a second-round pick. Recovery speed, stick-to-itiveness, plays with good technique through the hands, ultimately comes down with the ball, and then a nice little return. Here is what Ron Rivera said after the game about Jartavius Quan Martin, his second-round pick.
I think he learned from last week. I think the biggest thing more than anything else was he put himself in position to make a play, and he did it. There's a lot of things that we can be better at as a team, and I know he knows he can be better too. So, as we go through this, we're going to grow and we're going to learn from this.
Yeah, that's not I actually liked a lot of the competitiveness. I liked some other plays that he made, but he's got some learning to do. And I think the other thing too is in the regular season, they can probably pigeonhole him a little bit more and be like, all right, man, this week, we want you to be ready for this package. We want you to be ready for these route combinations, and you're going to be playing with these guys. And right now, he's swimming in the whole ocean. And they're going to put a little box around him when they get to the regular season, and it'll be a lot better for him. And that box can grow, but exposing him to all of this stuff early is the right move. So no game planning, and especially think of the plays he got beat on. It's combination stuff. It's not like, hey man, line up. Can you handle one-on-one coverage? Or, hey, drop to this spot. It's, hey, Emmanuel Forbes and Quan Martin, we've got this combination coverage. I've got this guy, you've got that guy. Unless this happens and they switch, and then you've got that guy and I've got this guy. And, oh God, they did the thing. Which one was it? We both went with that guy. This guy's open. And then he takes a bad, this guy's Zay Flowers. In that very tortured analogy. That wasn't really an analogy, the tortured example. And then you take a bad pursuit angle, and that's not a great look, but is what it is. I think Quan's going to be fine, is the long and the short of it. Smart guy, tough kid. Learning is good as long as you're actually doing the learning and not just making mistakes aimlessly. I think the same can be said in a lot of respects for Rashad Wildgoose, who played last night outside. I thought this was interesting from Rivera on why he decided to rest most of his defensive starters and how Wildgoose winds up in a role that when he's quote-unquote starting, he's not actually in because he typically plays nickel.
I think he learned from last week.
That's not the right one. It did it to me again. All right, here's Ron.
A couple things, but we decided we feel really good about where we are. We got some guys that we wanted to be careful with, and that was the biggest decision on the defensive side, just because of the familiarity they have with what they're doing. And we just thought we'd do that.
Was Ron fighting the microphone? What's going on there? Is he in a little fisticuffs with the?
I'm not sure, but the Commanders usually have technical difficulties sometimes.
They've had a lot of them in camp. Hopefully it's preseason for everybody, but preseason's coming to an end. We'll get the microphone situation straightened out. What happens, though, because they rest Fuller, they rest St. Juste, is that Wildgoose winds up playing outside when he's a good player in the nickel, and outside's just not his thing, and he hasn't practiced there quite as much. And so, again, the communication issues with him and Martin on the play where Martin has to do the big makeup. It's hard for me to crush him on the touchdown that he gives up. Clearly, the Ravens like the matchup. It's something they saw during the week during joint practices, and they went right after him. But he also, he rips that ball out at the end, and I'm not entirely convinced that wasn't an incomplete pass. Anyway, they called it a touchdown. It is what it is. You like the competitiveness, but I tend to think that he's going to have a hard time making this roster because they keep wanting him to step up and make plays on the outside, and he's been given plenty of opportunities because teams are going after him and hasn't gone particularly well for Rashad Wildgoose. He has the penalty to get them down in the red zone in the first place on that drive. So, yeah. All right, James Smith-Williams. We had a special eye on him because we wanted to see what he would do lined up at the 3 technique. I actually don't think he lined up there a ton. He played well on the edge, reminded you why he was the guy last year. Gets a couple of pressures, plays the run very well, has, I think, a tackle for loss in there. And then how about a guy who his roster spot is 100% set? He's out there just, working on stuff on special teams. He's out there playing special teams because he's going to play it in the regular season. And he busts his butt to go and then dives into the end zone. Not the most graceful dive, James, but a dive to save the ball down at the 1 yard line. You just love the hustle. You love the competitiveness. I think it was a good night for James Smith-Williams, even we didn't really see a ton of the thing that we were watching for. Ricky Stromberg, on the other hand, as we move to number 4 in our pick 6, Stromberg and Daniels we had as kind of a combo, the rookie offensive lineman. Stromberg played really well at guard, like to the point that he's on the team and is probably going to be active on game days because he gives you a backup center and a backup guard option, which is not what we thought literally a week ago before they had put him there. And Logan said it on the podcast this morning when he scouted him. He did not think he could play guard in the NFL, but he showed kind of a comfortability there that was unexpected for a guy that's played he played some guard at Alabama, but early he played mostly center, hasn't played it in a long time, and to just step in at the NFL level and be like, yeah, I got this. It's impressive. Doesn't have like great mobility or anything, which would become a limiting factor for the offense if he had to play guard, but your pass game is set, like your power run game is set. You're just probably not going to stick him out on the edge on a wide receiver screen, which is good. Braden Daniels, also, Logan said he had a pretty solid night. I didn't watch him a ton, and I've only watched the game twice, so I haven't gotten to the Braden Daniels cut yet. But he held his own. He's continued to grow, and I think that's the most important thing. Like, he's grown to the point that you still would rather redshirt him this year, but if he has to play, you're not terrified like you were in the spring. Number 5, Curtis Hodges in our pick 6 at 6. 6 guys who had something to prove last night. A couple of drops. He's targeted 3 times. Only comes down with 1 catch. Like, he played well in the run game, but there's, one of them is a really tough catch. The other one, you got to make that play. Like, especially when you're fighting for a roster spot. You have the opportunities there. Go prove you belong on the team. And he just didn't make the plays. His potential is outrageous, but he just is not consistent, and he's consistently not finished in camp. I think there's too much stacking against him right now. I'm going to, spoiler alert, have him off the roster. Cameron Cheeseman, last but not least. He rock-skipped a snap. Like, you can't do that. Not this deep into camp, not this deep into the, hey, we're working on our technique project. I don't know that means they're going to move on from him. I tend to doubt it. Ron is really stubborn on certain things, and I think this is going to be one that he's pretty stubborn on because they invested a lot in him for a long snapper. You shouldn't really draft long snappers. They not only drafted him, but they traded up for him. But they got to at least bring in competition. If they find someone who can do what they wanted Cheeseman to do on a more consistent basis, then, you can't be having long snapper problems in the NFL. There's just too many capable ones out there. So, Cameron Cheeseman. Not a good night, broski. All right, when we get back here on the Hoffman Show, as that was our pick 6 at 6, time for roster projection. Day after game, it's what we do. 53-man roster. If we had to pick it today, how would it look? You'll find out next on the Team 980.
Craig Hoffman.
It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. All right, it is time to do the thing. Anthony Haney, it is time for a 53-man roster projection. We've been doing this after each and every game. I'm going to set up our little spreadsheet right now. This is a good one to watch on the stream if you haven't checked us out yet. Very rarely we will do something that I will definitively say this is a better product if you can see it. It just allows you to follow along. It's not very fancy. It is a spreadsheet in Google Sheets, but it does allow us to have a little bit of visual aid if you want to join us in the stream. YouTube.com/@theteam980. So with that, let's pull up our 53-man roster. Anthony, do you think that Ron and Martin, the Martys, do use Google Sheets? You think they have a fancier something?
Yeah, they have to.
You think they have to have a fancier something? I mean, you always see the pictures of like the whiteboards, you know?
Yeah, but
they literally just like do it a depth chart and then have a thing. I don't know. Spreadsheet's pretty easy though.
Yeah, you're right.
So
I mean, maybe during their meetings where they're meeting live, they might use the whiteboard, but
yeah,
they're not together. You know, they have copies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so we got our 54 lines on the spreadsheet. We got the position and name at the top, and then 53 spots. So I'm already going to go ahead and make a change because I want to free up a spot. And this is going to be controversial after last night, I just literally copied and pasted from last week.
Don't tell me you're about to erase Jake Fromm's name.
Ready? Set. Boom.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, he did it.
Oh, my. You don't want him to be the second string quarterback? I'm joking.
What if I did? What if I deleted it and then deleted Jacoby's and copied and pasted Fromm's into it? No. I think the third quarterback rule is great, and I think it's going to be very helpful. I just don't think Jake Fromm is going to need to be on the roster. And so, yeah, if you get into a spot in a game where both quarterbacks go down, you're going to wish you would have had that emergency guy. But, you will have theoretically Logan Thomas out there. Like, you put Curtis Samuel back there, run some Wildcat, Gibson, run some Wildcat. Like, you're probably just screwed anyway. And I think you can get Fromm to the practice squad. And I think there are too many other players on this team that you're trying to squeeze in. And so, yeah, I think even though with the third quarterback rule, that's kind of my reasoning for keeping Fromm initially. I think I want the roster spot. So Fromm is out.
Thing is, I agree, man. I agree.
Internet is going to be so mad at us. I love it so much.
It's just there are too many, position battles, too many players to really consider. And again, we have the third quarterback rule. So,
yeah, if you need a third quarterback because you enter the game and Sam's already or Jacoby's banged up or feeling sick, like you can always bring up one of those guys on a Saturday night, and then designate him as the third quarterback for the game. But I just don't think you need to carry that guy week in, week out, who's just otherwise going to be inactive and is never going to be active, as opposed to other guys that you might mix and match. All right, running backs. To me, this is easy. Gibson, Robinson, Rodriguez, done. Jared Patterson, great finish last night.
Yeah, he did.
He continues to impress in the preseason. Kind of an all-time, last couple of years, Rashad Ross type of guy. Rashad Ross award winner. Great in the preseason. Never really popped anything in the regular season. He's had a couple nice plays here and there. But I just think Rodriguez has been a stud. He averaged over 6 a carry last night despite the fumble. Gibson is doing Gibson stuff. Robinson stuff. Done. I still think Alex Arma's on the team as a fullback. I think that one is we'll talk about in a second with the tight ends. I don't think Curtis Hodges has played his way off the team. And I think that Arma's value with some of the stuff they want to be able to do in the run game, in the play action game, and something that's underrated for him, and I noticed this big time in Baltimore in the joints, but also he had a couple of these last night. Dude is a beast in pass pro. And so if you want to use him either as a fullback or running back, like you want to line up in the gun with Gibson on the one side and Arma with the other, and send Gibson out on a route and still have a back that you can chip with or just straight up pick up a blitzer and trust that you're going to stone a pressure with, or you line him up at tight end and you have kind of that, use him as the end of line blocker and put him one-on-one against the defensive end and roll the pocket the other way. Like, that dude can hold his own in a major way, unlike anybody else on this team outside of John Bates at that position. And so I think the value there, not to mention, the fullback run play action game is always helpful. It really sells those fakes. It draws the linebackers up. It also gets heavier personnel on the field, which allows them to manipulate matchups in fun ways. So I think that's a tool that Bieniemy wants in his toolbox. I think Arma's earned the right to be on this team, or he's earned his spot on the team, I should say. So I think, first 6 spots are 2 quarterbacks, 3 running backs, and a fullback.
I think I've been consistent when I've said Alex Arma should be on this roster. And again, for everything you laid out, what I saw him do at training camp when he had to pull and block Chase Young, and he actually got a legit block on Chase Young.
Yeah.
I was impressed. So again,
there's they're called sift blocks, right? Where you come back across the formation, and that's what you're talking about. Those are not for the faint of heart. Logan made a living on those. Man. And you gotta waylay a dude, and Alex Arma will waylay a dude.
Yeah, he will.
And when it's a fullback, like, it really sells it, because like you can sift block from like a tight end line position, whether you're on or slightly behind the ball. You can also do it from that fullback position, right? Like you can go offset eye and then bring him back across the formation and just crush the backside end. And I mean, imagine it's kind of fun in some ways. Running into a guy like Chase Young can't be that fun, but fullbacks are psychos. So
I want to see him get some carries though. Like I feel as though like
they did have one fullback run last night. He was gone. It was to Gore, but like it's in the playbook.
Yeah.
It is a good short yardage option. That's for sure. All right, let's get through the rest of this offense in this segment. We'll come back. We'll do the defense at 6:30. McLaurin, Dotson, Samuel Brown, Byron Pringle with a catch last night. I still think he's on the team. He's had a quieter week or so, but he just does the right stuff. He's very solid on teams. I think he's going to make the team still. Oh, this is where it gets tough.
Uh-oh.
I think I'm going to put Kaz Allen on for now.
Yes, sir.
I'm taking the upside play. I'm still not convinced they're going to do it. Like, I definitely think Milne is what coaches like. super reliable. But I also think Logan made this point on the pod a couple times over the last week. I think all of a sudden Allen's ability as a receiver became underrated, where everyone was like, Milne, the better receiver, Allen, the better punt returner. Allen doesn't even know what he's doing in the slot. And it's like, actually, he does. He's not as versatile as Milne. He doesn't know all the spots as well as Milne, but it's not like he's incapable of playing a receiver. Like, he gets out there, he dices dudes up, he gets open. His hands he's had a drop or two, but he gets open. And you saw it last night in the 2-minute drill. Like, he's the guy that was able to get open, get upfield, and get those chunk yardage to ultimately set Sly up for the game-winning field goal. So I think last night was like a nice little feather in the cap for Kaz Allen. I think I'm still probably going to go 6 because I need the spot somewhere else. I don't think I'm keeping a 7th, and I think Kaz Allen's my guy.
Craig, this is one of the position battles that it's tough. And, you took Jake Fromm off our roster.
It did.
We take him off. We add a 7th receiver. I think Dax and Kaz make it.
Okay.
Bold take, but
I don't think it's crazy. I'm gonna put Dax Milne over in this column over here as a potential guy because we're still one short right now.
Oh, okay.
So we got to add someone in somewhere.
Yep.
And by the way, I think I'm gonna buy us another roster spot on the O-line. So things could get funky. We might revisit Kaz Allen and Dax. Well, we're not going to revisit Kaz. He's on.
Yeah, he's on.
We might revisit Dax.
Okay, that's fair.
All right, tight end. Logan Thomas, John Bates, Cole Turner.
Yes, sir.
That's it. That's all. Curtis Hodges, sorry, thanks for playing. Unless you go out and do something crazy in the 3rd preseason game, I think you've had too many bad days, too many bad finishes.
Oh.
All right. Charles Leno. Sadiq Charles, whose name I horribly butchered. I am so sorry, Sadiq Charles. Wow, we got to fix that.
You spelled it wrong?
There. I did. I think that is now correct. Sorry, Sadiq. Nick Gates, Sam Cosmi, Andrew Wiley, Chris Paul, Cornelius Lucas. Those are the 7 that I'm 100% sure of.
Yep.
I'm fairly confident after last night's game that Ricky Stromberg's on the team. I was pretty confident anyway because he's the 3rd-round pick, and you should be confident your 3rd-round pick is going to make the team. However, seeing him play guard at this high level is actually going to boot, hate this, good pro, had a good camp, bye-bye Tyler Larson.
Ooh.
Because I just don't think you need 10. Because here's the other thing. And I'm going to go ahead and say, as number 9, Braden Daniels, he's your redshirt project, that you knew that when you drafted him. I hate that it's a 4th-round guy, but sure, fine. Okay? But you have guys like Mason Brooks, Aaron Montero, who have played well in camp, and they're younger and they have upside. In Montero's case, he's played tackle for you in the past, so he's got tackle guard flexibility, and you can get more versatility than what Larson gives you at 32 years old as just a center. And so I think they'll probably go 9, and if you keep a 10th, it's going to be that or Trent Scott, who played really well last night at right tackle.
Yeah, he did.
Like they trusted Trent Scott with Sam Howell. Wiley only played a series last night, and then he came out, and they played Howell the whole first half anyway. Honestly, if I was going to put someone in there right now, it might be Trent Scott.
That's who I was surprised you didn't say. Because Trent, the way he blocked his butt off yesterday, pretty inspiring, to be honest.
So that leaves us with 2 roster spots to plug guys into going into the defensive side of the ball.
And we have 9 offensive linemen, right? Just making sure.
Yeah, 9 right now.
Okay, 9.
With Trent Scott in the we need to come back and consider him column. So let's go through the defense next, when we cut back, and then see if we can squeeze either Trent Scott or Dax Milne in, or did we make room for some folks on the defensive side of the ball who we think are going to make this roster. That is next. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980, and always live on the free Odyssey app. Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Always live as well on the free Odyssey app. You can, of course, check us out on YouTube as well, youtube.com/@theteam980, where if you are joining us, you see the tiny boxes of Anthony and I next to a gigantic spreadsheet that has our 53-man roster, and that is what we are projecting right now. We went through the offense. Let's do the defense. Defensive line. Chase Young, check. John Allen, Deron Payne, Montez Sweat, duh. James Smith-Williams, yep. Phil Mathis. John Ridgeway becomes very, very interesting. F.A. Obata, Casey Toohill, and then K.J. Henry and Andre Jones Jr. Was not on our roster last week. However, I think I said this last week. I'm going to go ahead and put him on. I said this like after the joint practices. So when we did the roster projection last week, he was not there. However, Andre Jones Jr. officially on the roster. I think what's interesting, though, Anthony, is can they afford to keep, from a roster construction standpoint, this many defensive linemen? Is Ridgeway a potential surprise roster cut?
I think you keep him.
I would.
I think you keep him.
But I'm going to flag it as something that people should be paying attention to.
Just because of how he did perform when, he had to come in for John and Deron.
Yeah. So the thing is about Ridgeway, more than Big Phil, he is more of a backup potentially for John. He can play that 3 technique a little bit better than Big Phil, who's he's a nose or a 1 tech. You don't want him as much of that 3 technique. So I do think that might wind up saving Ridgeway. But if you need a roster spot, that's a spot to watch. Okay. Linebacker. Jamin Davis, Cody Barton, David Mayo, Khalil Hudson. I don't think anything's changed there. I think Milo Eifler is making a push. And I could see, based off special teams, potentially throwing him in there to the point that I'm going to put him in our float column. But I think it's just going to be the 4 because I just don't think they're going to play a lot of linebackers this year.
I agree. It's tough on the linebackers just because we have so many DBs and you want your best players on the field. So I'm anticipating only keeping 4.
All right. So that leaves Forbes, Benjamin St. Juste, Kendall Fuller, Christian Holmes, Danny Johnson, Derek Forrest, Cam Curl, Quan Martin, Percy Butler, Jeremy Reeves, and then Way, Sly, and we're going to keep Cheeseman for now, but long snapper. There will be one, whether it's Cheeseman or not. I'm anticipating it will be, but we'll see after another bad snap last night. And we also have one spot, and I think in that one spot, even though he didn't have the best night last night, we still have to put Rashad Wildgoose in the float column.
Oh, in the float column. I thought you were put him all the way on the list. Hold on.
No. So, are you good with all those names? Holmes, Johnson, I think were the 2 that probably most would raise any eyebrows, but I think those 2 are both on. Holmes has been one of your best gunners. He's been good at corner, not great. A couple penalties. Danny's just been a utility guy that you can trust forever. He didn't play last night because of injury, but I think he's on the team. So, any pushback or one other name that you want to add?
No question I want to add, but in the event that, we don't know how long Danny is going to be out.
He was running around last week on the side fields.
Okay.
But there's a chance. I don't think they're going to IR him. You can't pup him because he was on, you have to start preseason and training camp on pup.
Okay.
But there's short-term IR, potentially.
Yeah.
But IR him for the season, no.
That's my only question and concern, to be honest.
And that's fair. And if that's the case, then I think Wild Goose is really safe.
Yeah.
But that leaves us with the roster spot. So here are the names that I guess we're considering. We could talk about a 4th running back, a Patterson, a Williams. Dax Milne as a 7th receiver, or Tinsley or whoever. Bryson Tremaine was good last night. Also showed some special teams value. I don't think he's dead in terms of a roster spot. Likely practice squad, but 7th receiver. 10th offensive lineman, with it being Trent Scott as a backup tackle. Milo Eifler as a special teams ace and backup linebacker with a little bit of speed, or I tend to think it's Rashad Wildgoose. Any other DBs that you think are worth mentioning? I don't think so.
Nah.
I mean, Keith Smith's had an all right camp. Like, Terrell Burgess has been very up and down. I think Terrell was in the picture a few too often, potentially.
Yeah, he was.
I don't know how many of those are on him. But if he steps up and makes one of those plays, I think we're having a different discussion. But when you're that far down and you got an uphill battle, it's a tough look. Tariq Castro Fields, like, he's Rashad Wildgoose, last year as well. Like, they came in together. But which of these guys, like, which direction would you go with this final roster spot?
I would probably lean. It's so tough. But I would probably lean Trent Scott or Milo Eifler, to be honest. I'm thinking you can never have too much depth on the offensive line. And then
go ahead.
And then with Milo, it's more so I'm thinking special teams and his impact. I don't think we're going to get much out of Dax having him on the roster if Kaz is, returning kicks. And then in terms of Wild Goose, I just don't know where you play him, though. He wasn't good on the outside. He's been getting cooked a little bit on the slot. I think Danny Johnson.
He's played pretty well in the slot. There's a reason he's been one of the top guys rotating in with the ones. I still wouldn't have him on the roster. Let's play Eliminator. You get to eliminate one guy. I'm going first. I'm taking Wild Goose out.
That's what you're eliminating?
I'm taking Wild Goose out.
Okay.
So you got Milne, Scott, Eifler.
I'm taking Milne out.
You're taking – I just screwed myself in this game because I think that's probably who I would pick. Here's the thing with Milne. He can play, not well, but let's say Curtis Samuel goes down.
Yep.
You can play him in that spot, and he's going to know what to do.
But do you need him on the roster, like the initial 53-man walks? Can you not P-squad him? Are you fearing that another team is going to go out there and get Dax Milne?
Definitively no, because if another team gets Dax Milne, I can probably go scour practice squads for someone else who's probably about as good as Dax Milne. But the benefit of having him and your Dax Milne, right? He's not that good, but he's our guy who's not that good. Or he's average. I don't want to be mean about it, but like, he's not a special NFL wide receiver, but he's our not special NFL wide receiver. He knows your playbook and he knows your system. He's been in camp all spring. He's got a rapport with your quarterback. Like, there is the intangible stuff and the continuity piece that makes him valuable. And reliability is a super, super coveted trait amongst NFL coaches. And like Trent Scott, if you have him on the roster, one, I feel very confident you can get Trent Scott to the practice squad. All due respect. Like, he was on, any team could have had him. Like, Pittsburgh had him on the practice squad and cut him, and Washington picked him up. And, if he goes out and balls out at right tackle again next week, like, I don't know, maybe someone else picks him up as a depth piece as their last offensive lineman. Occasionally these things happen. I'm not going to say it would be outrageous. And I think he should be in consideration for this team. But he's probably inactive every week. Dax has a chance to be up and play. And then same thing for Milo. Like, he's going to be up to play teams. So if I got to eliminate someone here, that feels so stupid, though. This is why I hate this. Anthony, what? Was this my dumb idea to do this every week?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it was.
But Craig, how often do we see wide receiver number 7?
I've seen it multiple times since I've been here.
Really?
Yeah, at least twice.
I'm not talking about I'm talking about if everyone's healthy, how often do we see wide receiver 7? Granted, injuries happen. You can bring him up.
There was definitely at least one year where like 7 dudes just forced the issue and it was like, you have to keep me. I'm one of the best players. All right, Dax can go. We keeping Trent Scott or Milo? Who's making our official 53 this week?
Let's rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
What happened with what consequences? If
you get
I
to pick.
win? If I win,
you get to pick. If I win, I get to pick.
I hope you win because I don't want to have to pick.
Okay.
All right. Ready? Is this how the Martys do it?
It's rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
Yeah. Is this how you think this is how the Martys do it?
I think so.
All right. Ready?
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Rock, paper.
This is ridiculous. For the radio audience, we've literally tied 3 times in a row.
Last one. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Oh, my gosh.
You pick. I'm the host of the show. I'm making you pick because I don't want to do it. Trent Scott or Milo Eifler?
Trent.
All right. Sorry, Milo. We'll see you maybe next week if you have a great game. Trent Scott. Insert row. Insert Trent Scott on the roster. We did it. Despite our rock, paper, scissors best efforts, we made a 53-man roster. When we get back, we will wrap up the show with real things, real people said, into real microphones.
Here's what's trending on the Team 980.
Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Real things, real people said into real microphones in just a moment to wrap up this here radio program. I'm not gonna lie, Anthony, I have no idea what's in real things today. I'm excited for the surprises. Sometimes I send you a bunch of stuff. Other times we just roll with whatever Anthony finds and puts in the folder. It's an Anthony picks kind of day. Just how it be.
One of your you sent me one of these.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure when you see it, you know which one you sent me.
I'm guessing it's the one that I'm going to recognize. So I'm excited to open up this folder and see what kind of goodness is in there.
Yes.
As for the show tomorrow, anything in particular that we want to highlight? Never read the comments tomorrow is going to be good. There's some real terrible comments, and I'm excited to respond.
Good gracious.
To some of them. Just certain topics bring out, I don't want to call it the worst in people because it's like, it doesn't reflect poorly on their humanity or their character. It just reflects poorly on their knowledge of the thing that they're talking about.
Okay.
And so those are the ones that to me are fun because they're lower stakes. I think that we're gonna have some fun with some comments tomorrow. That's all I'm saying.
All right, that's about.
Anything else that we got on the show?
Are you watching Hard Knocks tonight?
Probably not. We typically watch it on Wednesdays because
I think I might do it tomorrow
10.
too. Yeah, you're right.
But there's a chance I watch before the show. Sometimes we watch it. We get up and watch it in the morning.
Okay.
No, Hard Knocks with your morning coffee. Nothing like it. What else do we got on the show?
We might get a baseball person.
Yeah, we might talk a little Davey extension, and we're all on Rizzo extension watch as well. Obviously, more thoughts from the game. Starting to get ready for Cincinnati this weekend. It's also week 0 in college football this weekend. Maybe we'll do a little college football tomorrow. I don't know.
Yes, sir.
We can throw some stuff on the rundown. We'll see what sticks. But excited as always for tomorrow. Never read the comments, always gets me fired up. So that'll be 5:30 tomorrow. Also, the Commanders practice. So we'll have full reaction from. Really, I mean, the practice is one thing, but it's whatever Ron says before practice. I think EB is also talking tomorrow. I think that just saw an updated schedule. EB after practice tomorrow, and then Jack on Thursday. So we should have some Bieniemy sound. So who knows what comes out of that between Ron and Eric tomorrow. Obviously got your injury updates, but also EB's thoughts on Sam as the starter and blah 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 blah. So that's all tomorrow on the show. As for right now, to wrap up this show, it is real things, real people said into real microphones.
Real things.
We're not gonna be sucked this year.
Real people.
5 and 11, not very good.
Said into real microphones.
The culture is actually damn good.
Alrighty, the one that I sent you is something that we can listen to with interest and just kind of regular levels of emotional ties. People in Seattle, not so much. Pete Carroll on Richard Sherman's podcast talking about the infamous Malcolm Butler interception in the Super Bowl.
You guys are so mad at me and so pissed.
You think?
I wish I could feel it the way I should feel it, but
you got to keep going.
That play just happened.
Yeah.
It wasn't by design. There was no agenda. That play just happened. You guys couldn't hear it for years, but when we got down there, if you remember, we had one timeout, and so as soon as we got there, I said, one of these plays we're going to have to throw it to get all 4 plays, because I'm always in, make sure that we have a chance to get all 4 shots.
Right.
So we run the first play, and I think what happened is Bill's late. He sends in the goal line team, and we had already sent in 11.
Right.
That went through the play callers, and that's what led them to throw it on that down.
Right.
It had nothing to do with anything else.
Right.
We practiced it a million times. It was just the way we had prepared. So I was rock solid on the philosophy of it. It just was the worst play that could ever happen, and the guy makes a
made a heck of a play.
play of a lifetime, a play of a career for everybody's career, really. And it turned all of that so dark, so instantly. And if you remember, my moment was, I bend down and think, oh shit, I got to take this. I thought this is one of those moments that you prepare for, You got to be the epitome of poise, handle it, and own it. There's nothing you can say that's going to put it any other place. It was just as catastrophic as any moment could be. But the thing was, had we won that game, we'd have won the next one. We'd have won again because we went back to the playoffs anyway. Again, after with all the turmoil. It was a great team, man. Yeah. We were a great team.
He's not wrong. I don't know, man. It's tough. But this is the kind of thing that football coaches overthink all the time. You know, we got to think about all 4 plays. Not if you score on the first one. Just hand it to Marshawn Lynch, and maybe you do wind up winning those extras, you know?
Got to give me a fine, too, Craig.
Yeah, the radio audience might have noticed a jump in the clip.
Good gracious.
Because that there was a bleep to be had there, and Anthony did not do that. Is that a 10 or a 15? You did dump it, so that's good form out of you on that. The streaming audience might have gotten it because it's too late, but the FCC doesn't regulate YouTube, so we're not going to get in trouble for that. Is that a 10 or a 15-point fine for you?
I will be accountable. You can just go ahead and put me down for 15. Oh, we forgot to order ourselves lunch yesterday.
Oh, we did.
Oh, we can do it tomorrow, though. We have a meeting.
That's a great call.
Yes, sir.
All right, tomorrow, lunch on us, mostly me. But for the first time in the history of our fine system,
I'm leading. I know I am.
Anthony now has more fine points than me, which is very exciting. I have less than 10 seconds left in the show, right?
Yes.
Okay, just make sure I remember the time. Okay, well, we'll see you when we're well fed tomorrow here on The Hoffman Show. Hey, I'm Craig Hoffman.
And I'm